Ok, cuối cùng đã set up xong được cái này.
Carlos, Apron, Luca, it's just Gio also. They all helped me prep for this tournament. I couldn't be more grateful to have friends like you. Also, shout outs to my friends in Momo Nation. They've been kind of one of my longest standing, I feel like, friendships within the VGC community. I'm also Church of Trust.
Awesome. Well, it really does take a lot of friends to stand here up on this stage.
Thằng nào đua mẹ cánh dao của tao rồi.
Once again, Christopher. We'll be back with more Pokemon action from the World Championships after this break.
Hôm nay chúng ta sẽ rap một thứ chính là con Mega Charizard này.
As we celebrate this year's World
Có được cái này là rất là hay.
Anaheim, California, let's take a moment to look back on some highlights from the 2025 Video Game Championship Series season. I'm here with Charlie Merriman to look back at the European International Championships that happened in February over in London. Charlie, it was truly a historic year for EUIC.
It really was. I think EUIC 2025 is one for the history books. The storylines that came out, we'll dive into those now. Now, I'll start off with my personal highlight, which was top four. We had Dill Yeomans of the UK versus Yosuke Takiyanagi from Japan. Yosuke throughout the tournament on stream had just been embodying everything that Pokemon is all about. Just so gracious in defeat, and so even in top four, he was laughing along with his opponents in the game. And after that game, Yosuke gave Dill this massive hug. Dill won, and was just making the moment all the more special. Them saying you deserve this, and Dill was in tears.
It was như một món đồ chơi đết của Bandai vậy á.
It was so special. But then of course we get to the final, and it's Dill Yeomans of the UK versus Wolf. Dill has just gone ahead and beaten the record for any UK player at any IC, going at any IC, not NAIC, going further than top four in the international championships. And that record was previously held by Ben Kiriaki on the test this weekend.
Nếu không muốn sơn toàn bộ lại con Charizard.
Wolf goes ahead and wins, and the elephant in the room, or should I say the wolf in the room here, is of course the iconic speech that Wolf made afterwards.
Canh quá nhiều.
There were 1,400 players who signed up for this tournament, who entered this tournament. The biggest official Pokemon tournament of all time. 1,400 players trained their Pokemon, traveled to London, practiced with friends, worked on their team. 1,400 people showed up this tournament, hoping and dreaming to win the entire thing. But it wasn't enough!
And the crowd goes absolutely wild. I mean, you were there as well. How was that for you, that moment?
I mean, I just remember sitting there in the crowd and just being like, did this man write this? Like, it felt like one of those moments that it had to be scripted. And it totally wasn't, obviously. But Wolf just has that kind of energy going for him. And, I mean, you have to wonder if we're going to get a moment like that this weekend.
Oh, my goodness me. Can you imagine? It feels like Wolf has... I mean, he often has an incredible season. But this season in particular for Wolf... Because, let's not forget, after that incredibly iconic moment, he then somehow goes ahead and provides a competitor to most iconic moment of the entire tournament by unmasking himself as previously the mystery winner of the recent Grand Challenge that happened in January. It might have been Global Challenge or Grand Challenge in January. He went under an alias, and then it turns out it was Wolf, and that meant that this season he had won the Toronto Regional Championships. He won that online tournament, best of one closed team sheet, so a different playstyle, and then the Europe International Championships too. Could he do the unthinkable and then go and win Worlds as well? Every level of event almost in the 2025 season. I mean, no pressure, Wolf. Good luck to you.
Good luck to you indeed. And we'll be back with some more historic moments from the 2025 Pokemon season later on in the broadcast. So please stay tuned, everybody.
For the first stop of the 2025 ICs, we went to Sao Paulo, Brazil for the Latin America International Championships. Over 550 trainers competed in the video game across the juniors, seniors, and masters division. This was the big international showcase for the Regulation H rule set. No Paradox Pokemon, no Legendaries, no Restricteds. Just back to the basics of the Scarlet and Violet Pokédexes. With so many possibilities, trainers needed to be prepared for all sorts of team archetypes and unique Pokemon choices, and it was going to be the most experienced trainers finding the wins. The Masters Division Top Cut was one of the most stacked fields we've ever seen. 5 international champions, 2 of which were the only 2 players to ever have 2 IC wins, 1 Players' Cup champion, and a ton of regional champions. It was almost fate for the two double IC champs to face each other in the finals, or for LAIC to finally be won by a Latin American player. But in the end, it was Marco Hamanta Caladura Silva versus Victor Medina in the grand finals. A classic son versus daughter, with either Marco making history as the first 3 times IC champ in Masters, or Victor finally getting a win after coming so close so many times before. Championship Sunday was Marco's day. In a decisive 2-0, Marco Silva made history as not just the first 3 times IC champ, but
Má có khả năng tao phải sơn lại toàn bộ rồi đó.
Heavy is the crown as Marco Silva makes history as the first 3-time international champion in the Masters division.
In the seniors division, Marco's little brother Pietro Silva also won LAIC, adding another IC champion trophy to his cabinet.
Pietro Nihal Caladura Silva will be your
Marco Silva.
national champion.
Em.
In the juniors division, Ismail Hoki finally won his first IC.
We've got Ursaluna in the trick room, fully ready to pick up the KO, and we have it, Ismail Hoki.
Now we look forward to the Europe International Championships in February, so make sure to follow along
chưa đầu tư
and
được cái
catch
tủ.
all the action at pokemon.com/broadcasts.
Đây 10 nó sẽ có cái sticker đây nè. Nhưng mà mình sẽ sơn cho nên là vậy đi. Dán A6 A25.
I got into competitive play in 2016. I just stumbled upon like a YouTube video. From there, I saw that there was tournaments near my area. I did really well, and the organizers actually told me, yeah, you could probably play like major events and you would probably do well, and that's what I did. My earliest memory from this game is definitely building my first team, trying out like new stats, learning new things about the game. It was really, really good. One moment in my career in which I wanted to quit was after the 2018 World Championship. It was my last year in the senior division, and I wasn't planning on playing anymore in the master division. I got really, really unlucky in my top 16 match, and it kind of made me like try way harder. I think one of the reasons that keeps me getting back to tournaments is definitely my competitive nature.
Pretty good special attack, and it's just a one hit. No way.
Since I first started playing, there's definitely way more people. It's really hard to keep up because, of course, you have to practice a lot. I feel like it's also way more fun because there's more competition. At first, I feel like I was living the tournament kind of in a different way. Like every time I was going to a tournament, I was like stressing out a lot about the teams that I was supposed to bring. Right now, going to a tournament, I tend to test way less, and I focus more on something that I know that I'm able to play well. My strategy going to this tournament was based on having a lot of different modes. I had the Sun mode, the Charizard, the Torkoal, and Jump Up. I also had a really, really slow core with Incineroar, Porygon 2, and Ursaluna, and Torkoal as well. So I think the flexibility of my team was probably the strongest point of it.
Heavy is the crown as Marco Silva makes history as the first 3-time international champion in the Masters division.
Cái này chắc
This was a dream of mine that I tried to accomplish for a lot of years.
với những clear như này
really
là 14 mà.
it finally happened.
Với những bắt clear như này thì bắt buộc phải
the time in which I was able to defend my title.
cắt sát luôn.
In the senior division, my brother was also able to win it all, so I'm extremely proud of him. My overall goal is to improve as much as I can, and of course, being able to win the World Championship one day. Hopefully, this will be the year. I feel like at this point, probably my results speak for themselves. So, yeah. My greatest memory from the World Championship was definitely when my very, really close friend Lukas Chivelli was able to win it all. I think playing my brother in the World Final would definitely be a possibility because of the level he's been playing at and has been really, really high. One of the advice I would give to somebody that's starting out with the competitive Pokemon would definitely be try to get some friends involved into it because if you all test together, it'll definitely be more fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another segment of Meet the Casters. My name is Gabby Snyder. I'm joined here by Scott Glaza, and it is time to Meet the Casters. Scott, who's your favorite Pokemon?
We're going with Cresselia this year. I get a lot of favorites, but Cresselia, you know, it's a great washed-up VGC favorite, just like myself.
You say it's washed up, but I remember you did very well with Cresselia back in the day. My favorite Pokemon is Bidoof, which has yet to have its debut in the Video Game Championship Series. Scott, what's your favorite Worlds memory?
For me, it's way back in 2012. Yeah, I've gotten to enjoy so many fun public eye moments in the broadcast, but 2012 was my last year as a player, and got to hang out with Ray Rizzo as he was prepping for the finals with Wolf that year, and it was kind of just fun to be in the other end of it. You know, it's a quiet moment, watching him scroll through his social media instead of practicing for the finals, but hey, worked out for him.
The true sign of a world champion is actually branding. Who would have thought? Honestly, my favorite Worlds memory was back in 2018, where after I casted the finals I was assigned to that year, my husband proposed, which was very sweet and something I'll definitely remember for a very long time. Moving on, though, to this year's World Championship Series, who do you think's going to win?
I'm Team Kinagawa. It's famous that Japan wins the odd-numbered years, so going with the maybe the highest-profile Japanese player.
For sure, and also Japan tends to win when there are 2 restricted Pokemon in the mix, which is why I think Miraidon is going to win, because it's one of the strongest restricted Pokemon in the metagame right now. Whether that's going to be Kinagawa running Miraidon, we'll have to see. Last but not least, for our set questions, what's your favorite Pokemon game that has not been featured here at the World Championships?
We're going to go with Pokemon Conquest for this one. Big fan. I think the art style in that game is just beautiful. Kind of fun to get to see Pokemon in a little different environment than we normally see in other Pokemon games.
In honor of some puzzle solving I've done recently, I'm going to say Pokemon Troze, which allowed you to line up Pokemon in 4 in a row and then they disappear. It's kind of like you get into this flow state and it's beautiful. So make sure to check that out if you haven't. So now that we've answered all of our questions, it's time to spin the wheel to wrap up this segment. So let's see what our final question's going to be. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, it's going to be soon, I hope. Our last question of the day is the farthest you've ever traveled for Pokemon. Not just an event, just for Pokemon.
Think about that for a second. I assume it's Japan for Japan Worlds, right? Where a lot of fun. It was a great set that year. Yeah, a memorable event for sure.
I think for me, it would also be Japan for Worlds, but to provide a different answer that's a little bit more unique. My first time I traveled far for Worlds was actually for the UK National Championships in 2015. So that was a big trip for me at the time. I flew all the way from Seattle to London, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks for joining us on this segment of Meet the Casters, and you'll get to meet more of us real soon. Thank you so much, Gabby. My name is Gabby Snyder, and I'm here with some more casters for you to meet here in Anaheim, California. That's right. I threw it right back to myself because I can do that here this weekend. I am joined by Scott Glaza, Rosemary Kelly, and Aaron, the Cybertron Zing himself, to walk you through yet another one of our feature matches here at the World Championships. So I know Rosemary and Aaron, you guys just got off the mic a little bit ago. How's it feel to be casting here this weekend?
We got the best games ever. I don't know what else to say except for I think we got such a strong start with that Paul versus Eric match, and I cannot wait to see what else is coming after that.
Yeah, and of course we got to see one of the tournament favorites as well up on stream in Marco, going up against one of the other tournament favorites in Michael Kelshin. I mean, Marco just looks like he's on form. I think it's honestly really hard to come into Worlds as one of the favorites. There's been so many years where the best players fall a little bit short at Worlds, but I think Marco's 3-0 right now. He's on a great, great journey to try to make it to top cut.
All right, well, let's go ahead and cue our feature match and get that rolling, as I hear it's a bit of a long one. So we'll be featuring a match between Simone Sanvito and Nikolaj Nielsen. It looks like Simone was our EUIC champion back in 2018. Also got top 4 in one of the global challenges this year, which is quite the accomplishment. Nikolaj got a top 8 in 2013. And Scott, I could go through the teams, but I want your first impression on based off the positioning on the field of these Pokemon right now.
I mean, we look to see Iron Bundle do some stuff. It's Pokemon I think Rose is excited to see, and
so
here
excited.
it is. Did make us. I was kind of wondering if it was this player in 2 that maybe you were expecting to see it from.
So funny that you mentioned that. Yes, this is definitely one of them. Nikolai and Frederick are brothers that often have run the same teams together. Both of them are very well known for using Sneasler this year, as well as Blood Moon or Saluna. And I know that was a particular team that you and I were looking at, Aaron, and they've added Iron Bundle most recently to this team. Since you have that electric terrain, you're able to get that Quark Drive boost onto that Iron Bundle, and it can go for things like fast Icy Winds, fast Encores, which is a staple right now in the double restricted format.
Yeah, I actually think of them as the pioneers of Iron Bundle in this format. I was expecting them to come to the World Championships with it because they've been so dominant with it, so it's really cool. It also is this unique Miraidon set with Life Orb and Electric Terra rather than the Choice Spec set, so you're able to protect The downside, as you see here, is there's no ability to go for Fairy, Terra, Dazzling Gleam. So Icy Wind plus Volt Switch is a really nice way to just make sure that the Calyrex here gets a really powerful attack. But the bundle plus Koraidon is very reminiscent of things like Flutter plus Koraidon, where it's like Icy Wind and then try to just get it knocked out immediately. Here we actually see a Volt Switch to pivot out, and Ursaluna makes its appearance on stream.
I'm really glad. You know, I think Blood Moon's just so much fun. We haven't get to see a whole lot other than kind of that initial format where it was such a monster. And kind of speaking about Iron Bundle and how it's kind of progressed through formats too, I think it's been kind of interesting this weekend already to kind of observe maybe how players have tried to apply strategies from past regulations to this one. We saw Chin Pao and Dragonite come back to varying degrees of success maybe, where it's like it was the same two Pokemon. Like Chin Pao obviously has really reinvented itself. Dragonite maybe still trying to find the new look. A little bit too late now that we're already at Worlds, where I really like how Iron Bundle is being used here because, like as you guys said, I think that this makes sense. Right? Iron Bundle is still Iron Bundle, but the way it runs still makes a lot of sense. It just has to be supporting something that makes a little more sense of this format, and I think it really does. It's be fun to watch this Miraidon as we come back through here, just because it's you can't do the things you can do with the normal Miraidon with it, but Iron Bundle kind of lets it do its own thing optimally.
I also really like seeing trainers come to the World Championships with the team they've been using like all season, or at least a chunk of the season, because that comfort level is so important when it's like round 7 or 8 of Swiss. You're tired, everybody's like at their age. Being able to fall back on those instincts is so important.
Absolutely. And I think here you'll also see why this Blood Moon Ursaluna can be so good, and also tough. When we first saw Blood Moon Ursaluna come into the game, it always had something like Hyper Voice, which of course Zamazenta with that wide guard would be able to shut down, but it's still so powerful in terms of those ground type attacks that it can go for. You're looking at the earth power here. We've also seen that on Landorus Incarnate, and all of these Pokemon have been really successful versus all these steel types that we've got going on.
Yeah, I think unrestricted Pokemon that can dish out tons of damage. I think it's also there's just like not enough of them. So I think exploring the ones that are available is really important. Where kind of these Pokemon, they're kind of like in one of 3 groups here. I feel like, right? You get the restricted Pokemon are all some of them have supportive elements, but they can really dish out the damage for the most part. You have kind of like the Clefairies and the Amoonguss at the other side of the spectrum, where like they're really just there. But I think when you get like offense you have to respond to from those unrestricted Pokemon, it's really tricky there. Like, can you see what Zamazenta there, right? Where it takes what, like 60-70% from a non-restricted Pokemon. It's not gonna be able to one-shot in return with body press because it's bulky enough, and it's just a problem you have to deal with, which creates some space for the restricted Pokemon in a more unconventional way.
Yeah, a lot of fun decisions being made in this game, by the way. First of all, we saw like Iron Bundle going for Protect rather than a Freeze Dry. Zamazenta switches in. Bundle ends up not taking damage. Calyrex protects and a little bit like Encore onto that. Ursaluna here gets so much damage off, but also is still threatened by Zamazenta. I think one of the awkward things about Ursaluna is it's actually, even after speed drops, can still be a little bit slow. There's so many different ways you can train this Pokemon. You could run max speed, max special attack. You can run max HP, max special attack. So how you choose to invest in its speed is a really, really big deal. And if you don't have a lot of speed investment, even after Icy Wind, it actually won't be able to outpace things. And that can make it a little bit awkward as you're seeing in this current game state.
I was just going to say, I have to wonder why it was Ursaluna Blood Moon that was the ground type of choice on this team, as opposed to something like the Landorus Incarnate, where that would be consistently faster. I mean, maybe it's a Trick Room answer? Looking at the other Pokemon on this team, I know you guys can't see it, but I just took a look at my notes, and he does have a Sneasler on this team as well, which would be very fast. So you probably have to have that slower component to make sure you can cover your bases.
I think you want the speed sandwich as well.
Is that a sandwich for Miraidon?
Maybe. I think it's definitely feeling the power boosted friendship for this one.
I think part of it is Blood Moon with that Silk Scarf is just such a unique, like, powerful attack that has incredible coverage. And I think, Ursaluna's bulk is also pretty solid. And yeah, to your point, it could be like utilized under Trick Room. It means it's not the easiest to pilot per se, but if you are able to get even one really powerful Blood Moon off, it often can just get that one-hit knockout you're looking for.
I think I kind of like the ambiguity too. Where, like, I kind of agree with what you guys are going. I assume this is a slower Ursaluna on this team, but you don't know for sure, right? And I think like kind of having some question how your Pokemon are trained is like the last frontier of information you have to gain during battles, where you don't get to see the stats of Pokemon on the open team sheet, and you're having to figure it out, even if you're still pretty sure you're going to play a little bit more conservatively. So I think Pokemon can reasonably be
nó thiệt sự là đây là
extra value.
And to your point, Gabby, when you bring up the Sneasler that's on this team, I think the reason why we do see something like that Lander
Con Pokemon đầu tiên.
you can go Terra Poison, you have the Life Orb for those really powerful sludge bombs, but if you have the Sneasler on the team, you've already filled out that niche of having that poison type damage that would otherwise be quite good in the format. And so then it leaves you open to be able to use this Blood Moon. That Mind's Eye ability is so good to be able to deal with those opposing Calyrex Shadow Riders. And you don't have that same threat of the Wide Guard either with something like the Earthquake for the normal Ursaluna.
For sure. We have a Furgraf now on the field as well, which is a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting to see the Ursaluna and the Furgraf in the back based off the lead, but, you know, Nikolaj does have the experience with this team and probably really wanted the, you know, possibility of slowing things down at the end game.
And Furgraf seems pretty good on this team in general, too, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of mentioning a lot of, like, faster, frailer Pokemon, and being able to, especially as a fourth Pokemon, maybe, even if it wasn't Furgraf, kind of leave it unrevealed just to threaten Armor Trail as long as you can, because it didn't matter too much in this matchup. You got to imagine there's a lot of times where, even if you don't get the speed advantage,
but
Furgraf, or we did not mention the distribution, but apparently, I think you can do.
Kỳ ta.
Look how big its hat is.
I think this
Để coi trận này trận giữa Nikolai với lại Simon. Không, hai người không nổi tiếng cho lắm, gọi là không có fame nữa. Thằng kia.
Protect on its moveset as well, and that's not very commonly seen, and so as a result, it's actually a much bigger guessing game. Normally you can double up into it very safely, but here not the case. Now Trick Room gets sets up, and Ursaluna is like, hey, I'm very happy to just start attacking.
Now I think we know for sure. This Ursaluna is pretty slow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're kind of mentioning Ursaluna's coverage, too, but I do think, like, the way it's, like, single target and spread damage is split a little bit compared to the regular Ursaluna is kind of nice.
Có tiếng của Rising Bot.
Matches up pretty well into the Zamazenta Calyrex thing, where I think playing the physical Ursaluna can be kind of annoying, where you have to guess right a little bit more, where, you know, Shadow Rider can't really do anything against Ursaluna other than protect to avoid the Blood Moon, and then, yeah, having, like, the stronger single target ground-type move with no drawbacks to threaten the Zamazenta versus, you know, Earthquake, which is another one you have to play some guessing games if you want to try to get it down. I don't think I would ever call Blood Moon Ursaluna easy to use exactly, but it does seem a little simpler here.
This is a really interesting predicament, though, for our trainers. You've got this Trick Room set up, which would notably be pretty good for the Blood Moon Ursaluna, but now you've got this Amoonguss that's come into play, and there's no Spore immunity.
That's a nice psychic call, though.
Oh, yeah.
That'll help. That'll help a lot.
Yeah, I can't help but think if that got the knockout, the game's probably just over immediately. Now it's like you can, of course, switch into Miraidon to set up Electric Terrain that blocks Spore, but then Amoonguss could go for a Rage Powder, and I don't think Hyper Voice is actually going to knock out Zamazenta either, and so even though Ursaluna got that really nice Earth Power earlier, like you still need one more big attack to knock out the Zamazenta, and so yeah, you can see kind of the Rage Powder body press threat here.
Yeah, it's tough. You think you can also make a call. Do you really want to switch in your Miraidon into the Trick Room?
B2.
Probably not.
Yeah, it gets awkward. The speed issue, or I don't know what the moveset of this Pokemon is, but also if the Amoonguss is Pollen Puff, you have to worry about giving that up for free.
Oh, yeah.
There's the switch.
Okay, so Furgraf gets to see around later, but yeah, Miraidon coming in. I guess maybe you're hoping that this it's either like the Miraidon isn't going to get attacked or this Ursaluna is going to be able to do enough. But with the Spore, I mean, this is why, like, the perfect call here to bring that Miraidon back in, but it is just really risky. The fact that you went for the Spore, though, means that Nikolai is just free to go for that KO onto the Zamazenta. And now if it wasn't wrapped up before, I feel like it definitely is now.
Yeah, kind of surprised not to see Rage Powder there. I think it's like always generally safe, but maybe was worried that Ursaluna was going to protect there, and so then Furgraf could knock out the Amoonguss, for example. But Amoonguss going for Spore just doesn't manage to get anything off, and now Ursaluna is in really, really good shape.
Yeah, at least you can go for the Rage Powder this turn, I guess. Like, it kind of helps, but yeah, it's look a little bleak in game one.
Well, then you just go for the, like, it's like you get the KO onto the Amoonguss, and I think you still go for the Draco onto the...
You have to. I don't think there's any other option, yeah.
It's tricky because I think, like, you have to think about how you actually beat Ursaluna in the long run, so it's like you kind of want to launch that Draco to Miraidon, but if your Amoonguss faints, now it's -2 Raging Bolt and a Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back. That's
like, it's also Dragon Pulse, too.
Two awful... Well, actually, because it's Dragon Pulse, that makes it actually a lot stronger. This, but I think it's if it's Draco, it's like, do you take the trade-off between the Raging Bolt and the Miraidon? But Pulse makes it more consistent here.
But Protect also, I get there's only a couple of turns of Trick Room left, so you may as well try to give yourself that chance and see the Miraidon go for the Protect as well, because it also wants to stall out the Trick Room at this point.
Okay, 10% of damage, but it actually works out.
Yeah, it's the best possible move, right?
Yeah.
Like, he feels bad, like, oh, great, I made the perfect call, I did 10%. But, I mean, hey, it beats 0.
Yeah, I mean, hey, every little bit of damage matters.
And there was the poison chance there, too, right? That would have been pretty big if it had happened.
Yeah.
Totally.
No guts in this, Ursuluna.
Not yet.
Oh, don't say that, Gabby. Don't speak it into existence that there's double ability.
I was more going for like a guts to glory kind of bit. So
I mean, it looks a little spooky over there. Like, it kind of seems like it might want to see my guts, but...
Oh. Yeah, those claws look sharp.
Oh, my goodness.
And it yells at us to fight,
Yeah, oh, yeah, it does.
Good point.
I just want to use it. Maybe this is like getting them dirty,
I think at this point, though, if you are Simona, I think you do have to kind of stall things out just a little bit if you want to give yourself that chance.
Yeah.
But this for Rigorath also having the ground tear, I think it makes it much more difficult for this Raging Bolt. You can't use any of your electric type attacks at this point into either of these Pokemon, and this Hyper Voice, I mean, geez, that Raging Bolt gets like annihilated.
Yeah, and it's tough because you're like, oh, if I don't Dragon Pulse this slow and Miraidon just attacks, well, I might just lose both Pokemon, and suddenly things are just like immediately over. And so, I mean, Calyrex is out, but you can see the value of this Ursaluna. And I mean, Ursaluna, Farigiraf, both normal types. Like, against a Ghost Terra Calyrex, like that's the dream. And Calyrex carried on turn 1, but it mainly was hoping to see Miraidon stay on the field and maybe knock out Miraidon. The Volt Switch was so smart just to get Ursaluna out. And so Calyrex basically hasn't gotten any value out of its Terra in this game.
No, and now when you think about the game number 2, like, do you still feel confident bringing the Shadow Rider Calyrex? I think that you actually have to think about that a little bit. We already saw in that first match of the day that both of our trainers, Eric Rios and Paul Ruiz, actually left a restricted at home in those games, and that is something that I know, Gabby, you had actually talked to Paul Ruiz about. You have to remember and identify those moments where maybe my restriction is actually a hindrance to winning.
It's a tough call to make, too, because I agree with what Paul said. You know, it's very tempting to bring the Pokemon with the high base stat totals. They're very powerful. But at the same time, if you have the Ursaluna, maybe you don't need it. I mean, look at how bulky it is, too.
Well, the double up here should pick up, but still, I mean...
Some free damage.
How do you get but how do you get rid of the rest of the Pokemon?
Exactly.
Or get the Trick Room instead. So, I mean, that maybe gives us interesting information, right? Where I think that's assuming, okay, well, I think my Miraidon is slower than this Calyrex. I don't think that the Raging Bolt is going to one-shot my Miraidon, so I think this is checkmate, which, if so, I mean, I think Ursaluna actually was great there because it couldn't be ignored. It allowed Nikolai to kind of pick whoever he wanted to end this game.
Yep. I'm a little scared right now for Nikolai. I'm not gonna lie. Like, does Farigiraf? Well, because it's like if
I am too.
Yeah, like I'm not like Farigiraf normally has foul play. I don't remember if we saw whether or not it has foul play here. If you have foul play, you could just foul play. Obviously, Miraidon protects trying to bait Dragon Pulse, but like if you don't get the knockout onto the Farigiraf, then suddenly Shadow Rider KOs your turn. So this is the key turn. And it doesn't get the KO, that's what I'm saying. So now you set up Trick Room, but you have Iron Bundle and Miraidon under Trick Room, right? The Farigiraf is just going to faint here. And so I think that Trick Room actually was a little bit costly.
I think the Iron Bundle is also KO'd.
That's right, yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, I wonder, I mean, like, if the assumption is not that your Miraidon is slower than the Calyrex, I don't understand why you don't just foul play a turn before, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
I don't see how that's ever better than Trick Room.
Yeah, or like, do you protect the Blood Moon or Saluna?
Protect would have won him the game there for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's like this gamble where it's like you're worried about then the Farigiraf getting doubled into, but yeah, like Trick Room doesn't feel great here with Raging Bolt being faster.
No.
Yeah,
and there's that speed sandwich.
Yep.
Unfortunately for Miraidon, though, it was in the speed sandwich and not eating the speed sandwich.
It was eaten by the speed sandwich.
But that is a horrible multi-universe, like parallel universe, I think, for that Miraidon.
So we saw Simona take game 1. We do have the remainder of that set to watch. They're just getting that prepped. But, you know, Rosemary and Aaron and Scott, if y'all were in those trainers' shoes, you can pick whose shoes you want to be in. What would be the adjustments you're thinking about going into game number 2?
You know, this is going to be kind of a cop-out. I want to talk about the high level of it a little bit first. I think this sort of game is really hard to do team preview in, kind of compared to the normal, where I think even if that game had kind of ended in a more, like, expected way, when you play such a long first game, I think it's it's kind of easy to it becomes harder to go back and like attribute what led to you winning or losing accurately, where like you were still in doubt for a long way, right? Up to the point where it was kind of a little bit of a throw at the end. And you have to go back, okay, well, how should maybe this game should have ended? What were the critical decisions that led to that point? And it was so long ago that like I admit I've half forgotten where, but I think the players often like it's much easier to do game 2 after like a 5-turn game 1 than like a 15-turn game 1.
Yeah, no, I'm still just thinking about that trick room.
Hopefully he wasn't too.
Có những cái mẹ đúng là cái thời kích năm bao nhiêu ta?
I like was not expecting the Calyrex Shadow Rider to pull off a comeback in that end game, but it actually manages to, and just surviving with the sliver of HP. I mean, it's tricky because even if you knock out the Calyrex, it's like, how do you actually do enough damage to the Raging Bolt once the trick room is set up? Raging Bolt can just keep launching Dragon Bolts into Miraidon. So part of what makes some of these like fast and slow teams really hard to play is you need to know when to lean into the fast mode and when to lean into the slow mode, and that trick room in the end actually was not beneficial. But
we've seen this a couple of times though. I don't think that this
Charizard Mega ra vào năm 2014.
Setting up trick room backfire.
Kích ra năm 2014.
Down to Ice Rider Calyrex. Setting up the trick room sometimes meant that you
nó
put
trước
yourself in a
cái
pretty
bọn
big disadvantage
Build
because
Fighter
you
1
just
năm thì có nhiều
weren't
đâu.
able to get enough damage down before the Ice Rider Calyrex
Coi
also got
kỹ này
knocked
trước
out.
nè.
And that just feels bad every time.
I know, poor Calyrex.
Yeah, I think it's doubly bad for Calyrex too. I mean, here, it directly leads to a loss. So
làm mấy khớp này để cho con nít có thể là phân biệt được chứ. Đúng quá chơi Gunpla rồi dễ nhầm lắm nha. Nè, ví dụ như bây giờ một khớp vuông, một khớp tròn. Để phân biệt được cái chân này. Khớp vuông khớp tròn, cái chân này là không hợp nè. Bên này vuông, bên này tròn, ráp lại nè. Ngược. Còn cái này nè, tròn với vuông nè, ráp lại là đúng nè.
It's just so long, you know, its body was getting blocked by that.
Chứ bên Gunpla là hai cái đều tròn hết á.
Yeah, how many times have we seen an ice type mirror in a GS Cup match, by the way? Or two different ice types, but there just haven't been many of them available. Both of them
khớp này cũng vậy nè. Chịu khó. Thực sự thì nó có cái vấn đề là nó sẽ làm cho cái này nó không xoay được, nhưng mà nó sẽ giúp.
A lot of interesting things, by the way, because in game 1 we did not see a double restricted bring from Nikolaj's end. We actually saw the Ursaluna Farigiraf and bundle, so this time there's Zamazenta. But this turn 1's already so explosive. It's this assault that's been everywhere so far, right? So it's like turn 1 you do threaten with Icy Wind and an Electro Drift. Zamazenta could wide guard, but there is no wide guard to start here, right? Like wide guard alone, I think there's also the potential to go for a protect. The scary thing about the protect is then you have to face the Encore the subsequent turn, and so that's the beauty of this lead as we keep swapping sides. But Electro Drift, it is Life Orb, it's electric terrain, you've got the electric terror. Like, I would think this just knocks out Zamazenta, but let's see.
I mean, that would just be such a big turn. Yeah. Nikolai already goes up 1 Pokemon in this set, and I think it's, when you lose a restricted like that, very difficult, I think, for trainers to find that comeback mechanism. At least the Ice Spinner from the Qianpao is going to do some damage and also get rid of the terrain, so that does help a little bit. But you lost Zamazenta.
Yeah, and,
that's a big trade.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess what you do see, Calyrex sort of like getting a free switch here. It's kind of another one of those like air quotes free situations because still going to have to worry about getting icy.
Một con thằng lằn.
You get Miraidon sort of pinned, so now it's an opportunity for Simone where you're like, okay, well, I gave up a lot to get in the spot. I really need to take advantage of this positioning, or it could be a big loss the other way. But we see the final Pokemon as well, that MVP from the first game, perhaps. So.
I do have a quick question though. So last I tuned in to the Video Game Championship Series, I did not see Qianpao with Assault Vest. Where did this guy come from?
Newer adaptation, it means you can actually lead it into the special attackers. A lot of players are running like super bulk on it. Almost has like no attack investment.
Really?
And it won a grassroots tournament over in Japan specifically with Calyrex Zamazenta. And part of the theory is Ruination is such a great attack, and so much of Shadow Rider Zama is aiming to chip away your opponent, so then your Shadow Rider or your Zama can finish it off afterwards. And so Spinner is also a great move, by the way. Getting rid of terrain is so valuable.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the response here makes sense from Nikolaj's end, where it's like, okay, now I've got him for a grab, have fun Astral Barraging for 0 damage. But Simone actually makes a nice play. I think he went for Ruination onto that slot as well, meaning you will actually be able to damage it.
Cool. Ice even. Ice typing.
Yeah. I will say though, the only thing about Ruination, it's not a
That's right, it can miss.
But we've seen it miss.
Hay chưa?
Yeah, that is true.
Và đó chính là Mega Rishadon X. Mega Rishadon X.
Pokemon. Yes, you can icy win, you have freeze dry encore, but you generally don't do a lot of damage. And so right now it's like we've got two support Pokemon out, and like neither are really applying that much pressure. Oh, did you just will the mix?
Oh!
I think it can't be a caster curse because this is a replay. But you let you off the hook this time.
Okay, then it's like is it premonition or did I just get fed the script?
You tell us.
Hold on, the director's in my ear. No, I'm kidding.
No, that was I've done this so many times now. Where it's called like misses or critical hits. Oh no. Then did Trick Room get set up? I wasn't paying attention.
Trigger just came in, so now this turn. I think there's the interesting decision. Like you could maybe switch in your Zamazenta. You actually sacrifice the Iron Bundle, try to get Trick Room up from there. Zama being brought this time around, I think, is a very powerful pick. I actually think Ursaluna would have been pretty fine under Trick Room from a position like this as well, but Zama, of course, being able to body press. But yeah, Calyrex just protecting here, trying to stay alive for a little bit longer, not take a freeze dry, and go from there.
It's a little scary if you do try to go for the Trick Room too. I mean, you get some slow boys on the other side from all the icy wind spam.
Oh no!
Oh.
That's unfortunate.
So people might be wondering, why would you Ruination a 1 HP Pokemon? And the answer is you're expecting Bundle to switch out there. If Zamazenta actually goes in there and you get a Ruination off, it's absolutely huge. But of course, the risk in trying to go for that is you can't miss. And so Bundle hangs around for a little bit longer. I'm actually not sure Bundle wants to hang around right now, though. This is what I mean. Like, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You just kind of like sit there with the target sign, being like, please hit me.
Yeah.
At least it looks cute because it's shiny.
That is very true. It has that whole future Chrome thing going for it.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you know, it sort of kind of forced Calyrex out. Well, that's kind of good.
Yeah.
I could get to use like a
có
super icy
một con ít này rồi.
Actually, yeah. As long as Chien-Pao did, yeah, I think
con ít này rồi thì chúng ta sẽ có
nữa.
There we go. Hey, that's a caster blessing. I think we call that.
It hurt us criticizing it.
Oh, I see when this can miss too.
Good try.
The Arbor has done its job and can go to sleep now and come back later. But the Raging Bolt is already, I think, in a much more manageable position here for Nikolai than what we saw in the first game, where
nó làm cái bọc nó dày hơn.
That's a really big
Đó là cái base.
Yeah, it feels really bad to take that damage because now body press from Zamazenta in the back is so good. Like Zamazenta can just come out, pressures 1-8 knockout onto both Chien-Pao as well as the Raging Bolt. The main then debate is, do I predict a Calyrex switch in and go for a heavy slam instead, right? But Raging Bolt does not like eating up damage. It can take a body press, right, at full health, but certainly not at the range that it's at right now. So this is a pretty tricky spot, I think.
Yeah, and there's two slower Pokemon here too, but worth noting, our Armor Tail doing some work here, stopping both a potential Sucker Punch and a Thunderclap, where it's a nice little trap here. And I think you really got to give credit to Iron Bundle. You were kind of poking fun at it, but it did a ton of actual damage where it traded for far more than a full Pokemon's worth of HP, and then with the Icy Wind really enabled Zamazenta to get in safely. If it had caught that Ruination, I think it's a much worse spot, but it winds up being protected just well enough from its buddy.
That's a super great point.
Yeah, like part of the theory is Ursaluna looked like it was in great shape in that last game, but then it was like one really good Earth Power and then kind of just like didn't actually ever launch a Blood Moon, for example. Ends up being Behemoth Bash here. That covers for the Shadow Rider switch in. You can see actually still gets the knockout, gets the critical hit. But it's nice because I think, like one of the things you might be afraid of is body press. Shadow Rider switches in, then there's Astral Barrage pressure, and so the Zama's in such a good spot right now.
And the Psychic in return, I think this is another reason why that Fergraph is so good. It doesn't get the knockout here, but you think about it in
và
terms
chúng ta có ít rồi, chúng ta sẽ có gì? Đúng, chúng ta sẽ có ý.
Can actually quite high for something like a Fergraph. So I think it makes the perfect sense, and leave it up to like the Hoy brothers to kind of like figure this out.
Right? It's like Cresselia 2.0.
Yeah.
can never count out Shadow Rider is the thing.
Yeah,
it's like
they fool us once.
Yeah.
I'm terrified to call it now because of that first game. For sure.
Exactly, and it's I mean, it's a Pokemon with just so much snowball potential, right? So it's like if your Psychic actually knocks out the Fulgurath, then you get the boost as well, and then suddenly you just outpace both Pokemon on the opposing side. I think one of the main things to watch out for this World Championship is always the wide guard mind game.
Cái này nó còn lười hơn là nó để cái này chung.
I mean, we saw Marco Silva literally click Astro Barrage 4 times in front of his Zamazenta, which could have wide guard, and never wide guard, and he got like every call correct.
I think that's the thing, right? You know that if you are forcing the Zamazenta to wide guard, then it's not doing damage. I think that was the same sort of conundrum that we saw from
Vẫn là như vậy. Nó không giống như Gundam. Sách giới thiệu như một món đồ chơi của Dit luôn. Hướng dẫn sử dụng. Trang này tiếp theo.
Surely this time insurmountable advantage.
But then when you look at Nikolai, like, are you thinking ahead? Like, oh, you really want this Fulgurath because it looks so juicy to get that boost. So I guess I'll just attack you this time with another Behemoth Bash.
Yeah, I don't even know if it KOs, honestly. That's my main question.
With the Psychic into the Fulgurath?
Yeah, and I mean, you need to get the knockout to stand a chance, but if it survives, then you just take
phải breakdown.
But even if you get the knockout, you still have to deal with Miraidon, Zamazenta. But then if you get the boost, I mean, you do have Astro Barrage, then it's like the wide guard mind game, and if you just Psychic into Miraidon.
So I hate to say this. Do you go
Đầu nằm nó đổ bê.
It does scale Fulgurath, okay.
That's probably why no Trick Room on the table anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the Behemoth Bash, I'm really curious to see just how much this is gonna do.
Yeah, it looks like no bulk on the Calyrex Shadow Rider, but yeah, not enough to get the knockout, so okay.
It's like a 2-hit knockout though, and then you still have the Miraidon. Now at least the spread damage, it's like it's not gonna be single target damage because you have 2 Pokemon on the field, but do you wide guard?
Yeah. Would you wide guard?
I would.
Yes.
Okay. We got 1 yes, 2 yes.
He blocked Astro.
Okay, there's no wide guard.
Zamazenta survives this, and I think it's always fine.
I was just going to click attack for that reason. I assume you lose to a crit.
Yeah. And this is like the difference between a Life Orb Zamazenta or Shadow Rider or Spell Attack variant versus one that's not, right? So because you survive there, even with that special attack boost, it's not enough.
But Behemoth Bash just does have to KO here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're safe, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think I love how that end game was set up, though, right? Because yeah, I mean, we're all making our decision whether we thought we should need to or not. The reason why I wouldn't have wide guarded is just you got in the situation where you didn't need to, right? I mean, getting crit and losing this that would have really sucked. But like, I think it's just so important against that comp to not have to come down to that sort of read because, especially at this level, everyone's played so many reps of their teams. They're going to be pretty clever. You don't want to have to try to outsmart people too many times.
Yeah, and it shows the difference. Like you saw, that was a +1 Ghost Terra Astro Barrage, and it still didn't knock out Zamazenta. And like the 2 main ways people are running Shadow Rider in the tournament, you're using the Focus Sash Ghost Terra variant. It's really fast. Yeah, obviously can survive an attack, but its damage output is way weaker than say either 4 Calyrex, and some of these Calyrexes are even modest, right? And so that's all the difference. But hey, here we go. We got a game 3.
I was just gonna ask if we were getting game 3, but surprise, we got game 3.
We love game 3s.
We love game 3s. But interestingly enough, same leads?
Yeah,
same leads.
Now, obviously, you have to worry about the Icy Wind plus the Electric Terra, combo once again here. And so, do you just let your Zamazenta fall once again? I don't know if we know the Terra on it, but if it has a good Terra defensively, it could work. It's just the Icy Wind.
Mặc dù cấu trúc nó rap nó khác nhau nhưng mà nó lại khác frame nha. Như bên Gundam đó là cái gì mà nó spam được nó spam mà.
In case you're playing Scott in the future. I got you, man. I got you.
Appreciate it, bud. Yeah. Maybe I always go for the same move.
Yeah, every time.
These mind games are here, I had heard.
This is what's fun about Bundo, though, because I think normally you're like, oh, I can just protect and see what you do. Do you commit to Laterra? But if you protect, then you just get encored, right? And so Bundo plays in such a unique way where it's not doing much damage. And here's one thing you can do as well. You can double protect and just scout out for what the opposing side wants to do.
True.
Ooh. Yeah, watching your Ride and Protect feels so weird.
Yeah.
Where's your specs? Where's your choice scarf? Yeah, or like Assault Vest, I guess. 3 most common items we would think on this Miraidon, so. All right.
Oh, body press. All right.
right.
So interesting though that the option would have been there just to pick up the Zamazenta
again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the counterplay, you could either have protect switch into a Mungus is actually an option because then you do get rid of like the encore pressure, but then it's like you rage pound your opponent using your Mungus, and that doesn't feel really great. But I think this set is highlighting the strength of the bundle Miraidon combo. Being able to just icy win and blow something up with Electro Drift is so powerful.
I have to ask though, like if this isn't the situation you want to use Amoongus in though, when would you be saving Amoongus for? Like when Miraidon's gone completely?
I mean, it's one of those where it's like you want it out in the field to get a Rage Powder to protect what's next to it, right? So Shadow Rider's a good example where like there isn't a Fairy Terra Dazzling Gleam here. It's the Electro Terra variant. Also, the Free Strike from Bundle does so much damage into Amoongus. Like that is actually one of the only ways Bundle can deal damage in this matchup.
Fair enough.
The Raging Bolt as well, not faring too well with the other side of any of those freeze dries, but it's gonna be, I think, another time where bye-bye, Zama.
Bye-bye, Zama.
Right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, Qianpao.
That's an interesting adjustment.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's guaranteed. The Qianpao is assault vested, so you'll get a knockout onto that, or you'll do a ton of damage into something that switches in, but it does now mean a body press. That being said, I don't think this should KO Miraidon. Yeah.
No, I kind of like this switch up too.
Anymore, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a big, and yeah, I think it's sort of there's a bunch of interesting things here where I think losing the terrain last time was really bad. Like at Forest, the Miraidon switch, it made Iron Bundle less effective, although it still did like quite a bit of work in game two. At least now you're still threatening your whole combo, right? With the threat of Wide Guard there, this is one of those turns that you just hate playing in a game three where both players really have to make a difficult decision here, but there's still like the full hand of cards on the other side of the field this time.
Yeah, the Wide Guard is such good support because it means, like, what is Bundle going to do? If you click Icy Win, it gets blocked. You don't care about Protect.
Why?
The best it can do is freeze dry something right now, right? And so...
Con này ham mỏ được.
Potentially be a switch in into one of the normal types here, but it's not going to be. And so part of Simone's strategy now is I'm going to just position Shadow Rider and get it out in a really good spot. Wide Guard comes out, no Protect, no switches, and so that means Calyrex here should be able to do a ton.
Now there's still that focus sash onto the bundle, but the Wide Guard's gonna block that Icy Wind, and that's such a big deal because I think also kind of predictable. Nikolai does not have the faster Pokemon on the field. If you get that Icy Wind, I think this Miraidon is in a much better position, and so this is just gonna be a KO onto the Miraidon. A nice boost here for the Calyrex, and this poor Iron Bundle down to its focus sash.
And this is when the snowball starts, right? You get one boost, then you get two boosts,
and then
a
all
red
of a sudden
boost and a blue boost.
Oh yeah.
It feels really bad, right?
Yeah.
I really see like it's like neat, like, oh, yeah, my opponent maybe wasn't expecting me to pick up the Qianpao, but like, even though it made his side of the board better, it made his opponent's side of the board more better. We see the weakness of not removing the Wide Guard the way he did in game two.
Yeah, at least you have the Fergaraf that's going to give you that one immunity to this Shadow Rider Calyrex, but I wonder if that matters enough to swing the tide back over to Nikolai.
I mean, we've seen how much foul play does already, so...
Yeah, but then that means it's not going to be a knockout. That's the... Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You're thinking Trick Room here, right? But we've already talked about Amoongus, but maybe that's a good answer to the question of when you want to bring it out.
Giờ này có câu nó khác rồi đó.
It's not going to be now, but you do lock the Zamazenta into Encore, and I think that's actually really good use of this Iron Bundle.
Encore.
Wait, the Shadow Rider protected, right? And Trick Room isn't going up, so now you've actually made both slots useless. Which is actually, I think, incredibly, right? Like, I mean, yeah, like... This ends up working out. Now you encore into the Shadow Rider slot. Or you predict. Okay, predicting a switch.
There's no way he's gonna let me do that.
Oh my goodness. I mean, if it's Freeze Ray Psychic and like you switch the Shadow Rider out into the Amoongus and knock it out.
Cách nhầm rồi.
Oh wow.
That would be insane.
This got really fun really quickly.
Yeah, right? It's like, well, you know I have Encore, but are you gonna click it? Like, I think surely you have to switch out because you're not gonna let me neutralize both. Okay,
oh, he locked it.
Who's about to lose it?
Cái luồng này. Cái luồng này cực nhẹ vãi.
I think you might still get the KO here, but you are taking a lot of damage in return. And what gets scary is now it's like Amoongus plus Zamazenta as a duo, which means the other Zamazenta is going to struggle a little bit. Of course, though, you do have Psychic to hit the Amoongus for super effective. I'm also not sure if foul play gets this knockout, right? Like, I don't think it does.
I mean, it was so close last time, and it's just not even close this time. And now you've got this Shadow Rider Calyrex that's at +2. So, like, what a great call from Simone to actually leave the Shadow Rider Calyrex in. Kind of predicting you're not going to go encore twice. Like, surely that doesn't happen. And it really pays off in a big way, because I think Simone now is in just a much better position. Well, I don't even know if a second foul play would actually pick up this Shadow Rider Calyrex from the damage we saw.
I think it gets it from here, but that to me is like the turn of the set, right? Like if you encore, it's a completely different game. You don't
A16, A20, A17, A16, A20, A17, A16, A20, A17.
Like you know they know, and like you can assume at this level, you know, your opponents are strong enough players that like they see it too. They just know that you also see it.
And there is also Encore on the other side. Let's not forget that this Shadow Rider Calyrex has access to it also. And so we did just see the Farigiraf get encored into foul play. Means he can't go for the Psychic into the Amoonguss. I think that's another good turn for Simone. One step closer, taking those set.
Yeah, I love that he's using the health of the Calyrex as a resource there, right? We're like, it's a little bit tenuous here, but it does improve the position as long as there's no RNG occurring here. If it would, you know, perhaps allow things to go quicker.
It's still here, so you know.
Yeah, both trainers, I think, doing a great job of recognizing when their opponents are leaving them openings and using the opportunity to set up for future turns rather than just going straight for damage. I mean, especially with Calyrex Shadow Rider on the field, you know, the Astral Barrages are just so tempting, especially once you have that first boost to just start, you know, attacking. But Simone just showing us that,
jeez,
that was insane. You just wait for the right opportunity, and then Zamazenta goes down.
I mean, we saw that, right, in that last game. +1 Astral wasn't enough, but the +2, for sure. And the fact that this Farigiraf is still locked into foul play, it's going to be taking recoil. It looks like it's going to be another 4 hits before this Amoonguss gets knocked out. And so Nikolai throws in the towel. Congratulations to Simone. What a good set.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
So fun.
And isn't it awesome that we can feature these matches here?
Love
it. Side TVs?
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that we were able to share that with you. You'll be able to see all of our featured matches that we are recording over on YouTube, so make sure to go check that out. I gotta ask you all before we head off to somewhere, what do you think you're gonna see? What are you looking forward to most? You know, we're going into round 4. We've sort of seen a little bit of the competition so far. Is there anything you haven't seen that you really want to see?
Groudon.
That's my answer.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe if I give another answer. Yeah, I think just like maybe some small, like players we were less excited or expecting to see deep in the tournament in general, right? We've had a lot of like really awesome big name players so far. There's always at World some names like, oh, I would never have expected that player to go, you know, 9-2 or whatever, and I just love those stories.
But it is the World Championships. I mean, every single player here is such high caliber, so well like versed in terms of the competition, and so I love that I think we have quite high likelihood of seeing something like that happen. So I'm with you.
All right. Well, I will do my best to put the good energy in the air and get that all lined up for you.
We want Groudon. We want Groudon.
I'll have my people call his people.
Excellent.
For now, though, we have another round of VGC action lined up for you with our casters. So please take it away.
Thank you so much, you four. And I know you want Groudon, but unfortunately, you're not going to get Groudon, at least not yet. But we can promise you some top-tier Pokemon action with some other restricteds, maybe later. But
yeah, you'll be fine with the selection that we've got coming up next. You'll be fine. Just to wait for Groudon that little bit longer, and I'm sure it's going to be worth the wait when it eventually comes onto broadcast as well. So.
Yeah, and we won't make you wait for it either. I know you're disappointed right now with Groudon, but looking at the pairings that we have for our next round of Swiss, you can easily start looking at, you know, a couple of these really, really top trainers and start kind of imagining with where this can go. Trainers 3-0 on the day. I mean, this is a stacked competition. We've been saying that all day long, and this is really just the proof in the pudding.
Yeah, you want to, you know, it's a dream start for these trainers coming in and undefeated at this stage of the tournament, and with how tough the field's been and is and going forward. So great play so far, but still quite a lot to do to be able to firstly secure that day 2 place, and that's what a lot of these players are on the right track to be doing, but not locked up quite yet. Of course, some really noticeable names there. Justin Tang Still on that 3-0 train, which is great. Got him up against a really tough match, this next one. Victor Medina as well, I want to just shout out. He's been, consistent throughout the season, just being very good.
Ui, đứng đầu vẫn là James Evans, Justin Tăng,
quite getting over the line, and maybe this is the
Gavan Maria
that can kind of happen. Lars Markel as well, another European player as well, who's been very good this season.
There's some really great representation from all over right here, which I absolutely love. But let's start talking about the pairings and how these trainers are matching up. Because, yeah, we talked about stacked competition, and I feel like our next
Yuma Kinugawa đánh với Matt Morgan.
Definitely showcases that in every sense of the world. So if you're disappointed for Gaudon, I know you're excited now to see what's next.
Yeah, we get to feature Kinugawa, the reigning Japan national champion, and I think the hot favorite coming in to win this event this year. It's going to be very hard to take them down, coming off the back of that win in Japan. And not only that, obviously the top 8 finish at NAIC as well, and we got to see a little bit of what Kinugawa's all about at that tournament firsthand, which was just incredible. Going up against Matty Morgan, of course. Matty, very strong player from Europe, and won't be easy for Kinugawa to get past. Obviously having a great start as well, going 3-0, and Matty himself has had some good finishes, not quite a top 8 finish at NAIC, but was very strong with a top 16 finish at NAIC, which is very, still an amazing accomplishment in itself.
And this is just the moment where I wish we had like 10 different broadcasts, because looking at like Marco versus Malrada, there's the battle of the Jameses, James Evans versus James Beck. I mean, you were talking about
A12, A8, A8, A12, A8, A7.
That would be a great match, but I'm really excited about the one that
A12,
we have now,
A11,
especially
A8,
the
A7.
stories of these two players. I mean, you're looking at Yuma coming off as the Japan national champion, just falling short of that auto invitation from NAIC. But when we're looking at, the story, we're looking at, Japan national champion. It's an odd year in VGC.
Kind of means one thing: the Japanese champion normally wins the worlds on an odd year. So whether that'll be fulfilled again, we'll be yet to see. But I'd say Kinugawa is favourite and has been playing so well. I mean, some of the matches that we saw at NASC, some of the calls, the reads, just were incredible. It's going to be hard to prevent them from actually going all the way here, but there are so many top trainers, so you can't call it this early in the tournament, of course. Interesting with the team choices as well.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say too, when you're looking at can Yuma make that journey? I mean, Matty is such a strong trainer in his own right too, so this one I think is going to be especially interesting. And when you look at the teams, this is where things can get quite interesting, because we do get to see that both of these
sơ bộ thì đây là một trận restricted matchup, mirror restricted chứ, với hai restrict của hai người là Kaliresh Shadow Rider và Yamashita. Bên Morgan thì ngoài ra thì là có Jin Bao, Usifu, có lẽ là Usifu nước, Raging Bot, Musicot. Còn bên của Yu là chúng ta có thông tin từ đã thêm.
Like you say, it's the intricate details that make all the difference in these mirror matches. You can see here we've got the drag translation on the Zamazenta, very common kind of translation here, but the substitute not seen so much on the Calyrex, and I think if you allow Matty to get that up, makes it difficult to break the Calyrex and direct all that attention to that Pokemon. I think a big player here is going to be that Chen Pao, and a change up from Matty's team in NAIC where they had the Orgapon Hard Flame.
Team có Kaliresh Shadow, đúng rồi, Usifu nước, Teradak, Dragon, Ghost, Terragot, Terra Electric, Teradak. Team cơ bản, nhận xét cơ bản thôi, không có gì hết. Raging Bot thì còn có Boost Energy tại vì không có kỹ thuật thời tiết. Còn
ways to be able to deal that big damage,
bên
but
của
also
Utah
get
thì
more longevity for your own Pokemon and being able to maybe take advantage of the turn to set up that substitute.
cái Red Shadow
Opposing and looking over at this team again.
Dark Fighting.
Teams very similar to their.
Và có lần đầu tiên chúng ta có Smelgo luôn nha.
And when we're looking at this one,
Tornadus, Raging Bot, Rigabum.
bit of tweaks from last we saw Yuma at Japan.
Yeah,
khá là hay nha.
You can see that the Zamazenta previously was grass terra type. It's now fighting terra type, and I think a really smart and interesting choice here because how many players have actually done the calculations to be able to take a fighting terrestrialized body press? It's going to be even more powerful than they would normally be used to taking. Also, the Smeagol there you can see hasn't got that decorate that Yuma has used in the past. It's now got
khá là vui, team khá là thú vị. Có Smeagol thì để coi game này làm ăn ra được cơm cháo gì không? Tại vì cái game hiện tại thì thứ nhất là Smeagol bị nớp một cách gián tiếp. Thực ra là những chỉnh sửa của các Pokemon khác. Các thông tin rồi đúng không? Là để nớp Smeagol. Cho nên là thực ra là Pokemon khác bị dính miệng chứ không phải là con Smeagol bị dính miệng.
I think is really, really strong. But when these two teams are so similar, where do we get to see where a trainer can really take advantage? Is it all down to those restricteds?
Definitely, I don't think it is down to the restricteds. They're going to play.
Nhưng mà đây là một trận Mirror Restricted nha. Mirror Restricted là sao, là hai con Restrict là hai con Pokemon giống nhau. Và thường thường là một team nó build là dựa trên hai restrict chủ yếu, chứ ít khi nào mà dựa trên một con Pokemon cái meta restricted thì team nó dựa trên hai Pokemon restrict là chủ yếu. Đó. Speed round 4.
Get into the first game here, Swiss round 4 between Yuma and Maddie. Right away, Yuma, that's going to be both.
Matty list cho mình là Chiên Bao và Winscott, còn Yuma thì list cho mình là Zamazenta, cặp Zamazenta và cái rest luôn, hai rest của mẹ version này.
With that sash there, do have a bit of a protection, but there's Zamazenta putting a lot of pressure onto that Chen Pao, and you're not really offering up the offensive nature that you would really want in this situation. Yes, you can maybe call a Terastallization on the Calyrex, go for a move blast, protect dog type, but I don't know. We're going to see the protect come out from the Chen Pao to start us off.
Make sure that Chen Pao makes it through the turn, and Whimsicott, when Maddie has a Pokemon that has the ability to set the speed for the Pokemon he has in the back, this just makes so much sense.
Okay. Như vậy là khả năng cao Winscott sẽ đi trong ván này luôn á. Nếu mà con Zamazenta đánh vào Body Rest, Protect không, Winscott có thể có khả năng sử dụng Vecti. Giờ phải sắc rồi.
Yeah, really interesting there. No Calyrex in the back for Matty, so that's a big decision there. It puts a bit more reliance on that Chen Pao to be able to.
Giờ bắt buộc phải sắc con Winscott rồi. Coi đã coi tự nhiên list Chiên Bao đã làm gì trước ta, có thể là đón đầu bên Yuma không list Restrict ra. Cái team này thì
that is a lot of damage from that Ice Spinner, and Whimsicott now the double up with the Moonblast, not enough.
Moonblast không chết rồi, tiếp tục.
Đấy là không dám Terra con TR luôn, không cần luôn.
Đâu cần.
Sợ Suckerpun kìa, ý là sợ Suckerpun đấy mà không dám luôn, không kiểu ổng này predict được ấy.
Mà Matty list vậy cũng sai rồi. Khó quá, cái list của Matty khó quá.
Thì có thể là list con Chiên Bao ép con CR Terra ấy.
Nhưng mà
Có thể thôi.
Sao được, bên kia có Yama mà. Đáng lẽ ra con chiên bao cũng là con sợ Yama hơn là con Kalirex nó sợ chiên bao.
Tâm lý nhau thôi, nói chung là cũng có thể kiểu chim bao còn đỡ nha, chim bao còn đỡ được cái body press, nhưng mà CR ăn cái sức cực bắn đằng ngỏ mà. Chim bao còn đỡ một đòn.
Nói chung một tâm lý thôi. Đó là tâm lý.
Đừng đánh hay vậy. Nhưng mà đánh hay.
Mấy anh Nhật thì nó làm cái gì nữa.
Ổng giữ Terra đâu này, quả này trao đổi nha chiêu thì
không thì đến bây giờ đánh được chiên bao thì giữ Terra tốt nữa, đâu sợ gì nữa đâu.
We'll go in on into this turn, call out that fake out pressure, and it's going to be a Raging Bolt that protects Zamazenta that tried to get a move off, but is going to be stopped in its tracks. The body press from Yuma, though, into the Raging Bolt. So not really any damage done on this turn. It's just Maddie that's now one last turn of that tailwind to work with.
Yeah, and then now I think it's about making the most of it, right? I think you can go for the double up into the Rillaboom. It hasn't got Protectus, an easy slot to go for here. But we are finally seeing those terrestrialization options locked in, and which one it will be, we'll find out very soon. It will be the fighting terrestrialization on Kinagawa. Gonna go all out with a body press in retaliation to Matty side of the field. Which target will he go after though?
Ôi, lần đầu thấy ta chơi Terra này luôn.
Terra gì?
Lần đầu qua đó chơi Terra fighting. Thật luôn.
Hồi nãy cũng mới bất ngờ thấy Yama Terra fighting á.
Lần đầu. Ai cũng chơi Terra thủ hết, không ai chơi Terra công nhé.
Thực ra cái Terra Dragon nó cũng hơi bất lợi, tại vì cái meta này đầy Fairy mà. Miradon nè, Kalirex Shadowride nè, rồi chưa kể con Raging Bolt nữa.
Đỡ được Second Strike hay là đỡ gì Second Strike hay là Hitway hay gì đó cũng được. Quan điểm của em ấy là quả này không cần Terra fighting nhưng kiểu gì không cần Terra fighting vẫn chưa biết kêu được Raging Bolt, kiểu Terra fighting nó bị thừa quá. Đó, kiểu thà rằng mình Terra fighting mà mình vẫn KO được nó thì còn ok, nhưng mà kiểu
chắc là tính
Terra sau khi Terra vẫn
ý rồi, chắc là để xem coi là nó mất bao nhiêu thôi. Chắc Terra vậy là vậy thôi.
Ủa giờ bố thế 2 đấu 2
Mirror luôn, Mirror 2 đấu 2 nè. Vô thế Mirror rồi nè.
Yeah, that's it. And I think now you've got to really kind of say
với cả ông Matty cũng dám Terra gần, sợ con Raging Bolt này.
Matty Terra rồi đúng không ta? Chưa mà.
Chưa Terra. Con nào sao anh nhanh hơn anh? Anh không để ý.
Đâu nó để ý đâu. Nó thực ra thì sợ đúng rồi, bên kia cũng Raging Bolt mà. Tao nghĩ Terra Raging Bolt vẫn là tốt hơn, tại vì bây giờ đâu đúng cái hệ điện chỉ có sợ hệ đất thôi mà.
Đúng rồi.
But that's just not going to be nearly enough. Body press now in retaliation.
Không đủ.
Terrestrialization boost from Yuma. We already saw how much into the Raging Bolt. Easy KO. Now Rowdy just down to one.
Dù nhanh hơn nhưng mà vẫn không đủ.
And Yuma, I mean, you're still looking at a Raging Bolt on his end that has just been untouched and skill can put off.
Cái game này tao sợ Raging Bolt vậy. Nói chung là mỗi lần mà thấy Raging Bolt tao ngán kiểu gì.
Raging Bolt nó trâu kiểu con này con cách check được restricted rất là tốt nhá, check con nào restricted nào check được hết. Thật, con nào cũng kiểu check được hết. Đây chả nặng nào cũng check được, mạnh vãi.
Nhìn cái hệ lò lỏ vậy mẹ. Kiểu khó chịu vậy.
Này, nếu mà gặp set rồi cầm Alphabet, nếu mà gặp Zama thì mình cứ Thunderbolt, đánh con nào cũng đau, đánh con restricted nào cũng đau hết. Miriadon thế. Hệ tốt mà. Châu.
Thì đám Paradox Gio để được mỗi nó. Trước có anh Crow mà đi nhanh quá. Anh Crow đi nhanh quá.
I'm really intrigued with how this next game can go, especially too. Again, we saw that battle of
Yuma
the Zazentas, but
Yuma cầm
it
cái
was
đinh cũ.
Shadow Rider from Yuma that actually made a lot of impact early.
Hình như đầu bếp đi hết rồi đúng không ta?
Đúng rồi.
Ngày hôm nay có ai đầu bếp không?
Không có.
Buffy còn đéo dám mang về chat đi mà.
Không mà Buffy mang team early meta quá, nhưng mà vô tình lại đánh tốt nha. Tại kiểu mid meta ấy, bắt đầu người ta bắt đầu chơi Criminal thì lại cái team của Buffy là yếu. Bây giờ ta hết chơi Criminal rồi.
Vô tình nói chung là gặp
Buffy lại ok.
Gặp thời thôi. Chả biết được nào. Đủ Malit Thunderous Smego.
Thôi gặp quá mong luôn.
Matching the tailwind not with that restricted pair. This Mego
player win thôi.
Has to be a little bit wary of that taunt, but the one thing that you're gonna have to say is does the Whimsicott then?
Ông Yuma mà dám đi correct ấy, ông Yuma dám đi correct lại, ông này xứng đáng làm champion năm nay luôn.
Taking damage from a fake out to remove your focus side. Tailwind from the Whimsicott and Iron of the Tornadoes on the opposing end of the field. This can either be a match or an opportunity to do some damage. Bleakwind Storm, of course, nothing.
Tornadoes hả? Skyblade hả? Đúng quá. Valor.
Skyblade. Nhìn thấy giống cái băng ấy, nhìn giống cái băng lại nước ấy.
Nó phải linh mẹ, đúng quá. Thunder Tornadoes. Thể chiến à?
Thôi phải giờ thấy cầm item đóng nhiều, item tăng đam phải bay ấy để ví dụ con thích kêu Scott này, nhưng Scott này không sâu, ví dụ giả dụ thế.
Scott thì đa phần bởi bây giờ vẫn thấy Scott sát nha, nhưng mà không thấy phổ biến nữa.
Cô ta giờ cần cô với block mà
cô còn với block nhiều hơn.
Sắp cho trên bao. Ủa sao lại là ham lít trên bao này ta? Không hiểu lắm.
Thắc mắc. Thấy cái lít này nó yếu kinh dị luôn á.
Thấy kiểu bị thụ động, trong cái sát thương nữa với phòng thủ luôn.
But for right here, right now, the Raging Bolt is something that can be impacting this damage.
Ủa thiệt rồi, con chim bao ở con thon xin lỗi. Chắc là hiểu. Chim bao có thon, ông sợ Smiggle. Hiểu. Đoán. Đúng không ta?
Đâu ra?
Ok. Nhìn thon Smiggle là kiểu thon Smiggle sẽ ép Smiggle để switch sang Zamazenta chẳng hạn.
You know, it's just a bit of a free slot here, so Matty has got that to take advantage of now with the ice and the electric.
Ăn thân bốt bờ bị ghim con đổ sang gì ăn thân bốt. Mày khùng quá ai? Game 1 không mang ra, không mang xét rồi. Siêu khùng luôn.
Kiểu lít kiểu khó hiểu á.
So of course, Miracles you call it can't really do anything.
Cái sẽ phải đổi ra Zama này.
Forced to be switching this Pokemon out, and now it's going to be none other than the Zamazenta to hit the field. Dauntless Shield, of course, get a little bit of a defense boost. Now, protect just from this Tornadoes, really not wanting to go for this Tailwind quite yet, and of course not wanting to take any sort of damage on the turn. Qianpao targeting into that slot, going to be
mà trong team Zama, trong team Yuma lại bị có set rồi Buki, không có speed nhiều.
So not a free switch, but a considerable amount of damage.
Yeah, and, you know, I love this where you're just not giving up the Tornadoes for free here. You don't want to. You want to reposition. You want to
đánh tiếp luôn sợ gì?
Giờ có đánh thôi chứ làm gì nữa.
Có khi tê ra electric luôn. Cũng được, tê ra electric luôn.
So that raging bolt can't just rely on the fact that it's got a lot of health and it's remaining. It has to be very careful going into this next turn, because if a tailwind comes out from the tornadoes, body press follow up into that slot, you could be left in a really awkward position where one of the more powerful
lát nữa lên bài. Lát nữa lên bài Quốc Phi năm nay vô địch nữa là tao để avatar ổng nằm. Quốc Phi vô địch. Tao hứa với Quốc Phi vô địch tao sẽ để avatar mặc không một năm.
Was big, and this raging bolt on the other end cannot feel quite safe. This is finally the opportunity. Speed on Yuma's side. Tailwind has been clicked. Now body press from the Zamazenta with that terrestrialization boost into the raging bolt. Not enough quite for the KO.
Không chết kìa.
Hold on barely. Thunderbolt in retaliation though, but without the terrestrialization.
Thấy lý do mà tao ngại má trâu phải cực kìa.
Yeah, and the switch into the Whimsicott is a really nice one, because now you've got the option to potentially go for the on-call into the Tornadoes to lock it into that tailwind. So really well timed there from Matty to potentially shut that threat down, which would be nice. The Raging Bolt are in such an awkward position. It can go for a Thunderclap into the Zamazenta, but is it going to be enough? Probably not from the damage that we've seen from that Thunderbolt. So Zamazenta still in that nice position, and now with that tailwind active, really going to be starting to put on the pressure, especially after that terrestrialization into the fighting type.
And with how offensive this Tornadoes has been as well, the last thing you want to do is put all the eggs in the basket of the Thunderclap. It's on Zamazenta, and all of a sudden it's not ready in an attack, and you just get KO'd by a bleak win. But now Whimsicott, since it has been out back on the field, body press, that's the tailwind, body press, but of course Raging Bolt protects. Now
đây là gì, một con thằng lằn.
No connection onto the Raging Bolt. Will it connect into the Whimsicott though? It will, and Whimsicott already on his sliver. Now Maddie can be bringing into a Pokemon, quite speedy one, since he did bring that Calyrex Shadow Rider to try and take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, one of the things that you would say is that the fighting terrestrialization doesn't really help you out too much against the Calyrex, because normally you can get rid of that psychic weakness that you've got there, but with the fighting type you can't really do that. So it's an easy target now with that psychic into the Zamazenta to get rid of that Pokemon. So whether or not we see Kinagawa maybe switch out the Zamazenta, keep it for later, and just keep applying the pressure with the Tornadoes, it's going to be able to outspeed the Raging Bolt, and a Bleak Windstorm into that slot will be enough, even though it's, resisted. It's so low health at this point, and any actual damage into the Calyrex is going to be very useful as well.
Ooh, eyeing this up though. Instead of just going for an offensive turn to try and do enough damage with something like the Psychic, get to see a little bit of a different move choice as well as terrestrialization from Maddie. So the Dark type terrestrialization, this of course does not fare well up against something like that body press. Going from immunity to now just taking a lot of damage. But when you're eyeing up, I mean, just any sort of shutdown could be big. But of course, when you're talking about shutdowns, Thunderclap, nothing into the Tornadoes. Substitute from Calyrex is going to be the answer into making sure you're not taking a bunch of damage from the body press, and probably going to be relatively free on this turn. But no, Heavy Slam instead into the Calyrex. Substitute taking the damage, and it will be enough to break it.
Yeah, you were kind of saying, is there going to be a body press into that slot? But Matty kind of protected bases there with that substitute, which is really nice there. Putting himself into that position again where it can threaten that Zamazenta this next turn, and the Tornadoes has burnt that protect here. So
nhưng mà nếu mà con kia đã cầm Skyblade rồi thì khả năng cao cũng đéo cầm Splinter đâu.
Sprinter nhưng mà nó có con, nó có con, để sao mà kiểu vậy?
Ủa, Thon bây giờ không tác dụng lên Dark à?
Bậy rồi. Kiếm nó thường kiếm 8 rồi. Để tắt cái kia mới á.
Ý là kêu là
đó là Thon này.
Biết, nhưng mà để lát nữa coi lại team cái ship của nó coi có phải là Runster không? Ủa mà bên kia mà biết đúng không ta? Biết rồi.
Yeah, that's a really nice play here, and with that life ball boost as well, get some really good damage onto the Tornado, so you're going to activate the Grimnir, and you're still in a pretty healthy position, just taking a little bit of recoil free trouble there, and you've still got the Raging Ball hanging on by a thread on your side of the field. I've got that active Thunderclap, it's kind of checking the Tornado, so if the Tornado decides to go for Oblique Wind, then you've got it kind of checked there, but one Pokemon that can come and start disrupting, kind of supporting the Tornadoes here, is that Smeargle. Got the fake out now. The target it wants to.
Matty có vẻ đuối rồi.
Apply a little bit more pressure or a tailwind if it's on to kind of match what's on Matty's side.
Kiểu ông này cố gắng sắp ấy,
ông kiểu ông này cố gắng sắp để since of course there's immunity, but no attempt at a protect. Instead, is just going to be taking that fake out. Nothing into the Raging Bolt, though. So Raging Bolt will be able to go for an attack. That's going to be the Tornadoes to make sure that the speed is going to be matched on this turn. But Thunderbolt into this Smeargle is going to bring it all the way down into the Focus Sash.
Yeah, now the question is, what does Matty go for, right? The Tailwind's set up now, so...
Không nghĩ được Smeargle nó lại mạnh đến như vậy luôn. Hay á.
But now you've got Wide Guard on the Smeargle. Do you lock in with an Astral Barrage? It's super effective into the Smeargle, but if you kind of lock into the Psychic and go after the Tornadoes here, then you kind of open yourself up to being subjected to a spore potentially from the Smeargle, and that's the worrying part about it. You want to try and get rid of the Smeargle before it can get that spore off and start disrupting your side of the field. Kinigawa playing this absolutely so well to make it so difficult for Matty to get that momentum swing that he's trying so desperately to kind of get here.
And the fact that the Tornadoes was able to just reset that speed is huge, but Thunderclap is finally going to find its mark as Tornadoes goes down. It already made so much impact though, but on this turn, it will be that Spore since Yuma has the speed. Might as well take advantage of it, and Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be forced to sleep onto this turn.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the last Pokemon in the back for Kinigawa. What have they got? But that Spore is also crucial. Taunt wearing off for the Raging Bolt, so worth noting there, in a defense Moody Boost and a speed drop for the Smeargle. So that might be quite influential going into this next turn. Even though the Tailwind's set up, will that affect the interactions with maybe the Raging Bolt this next turn?
We'll have to see if this one comes to fruition, but hitting the field is a very speedy Pokemon. 2 more turns of the Tailwind as well. Calyrex for Matty, of course, has taken that one mandatory turn of sleep on that previous turn, but whether it wakes up, that's going to be a different story.
Yeah, and you kind of need to wake up as soon as possible. The Terrestrialization's going to be spent on Kinigawa's side, but the Astral Barrage is going to be super effective if it does land into that opposing Calyrex, and more than enough to be able to...
Sức mạnh tình bạn có bằng con giáp đốt thôi, hai ba không? Giáp đốt. Con giáp đốt thôi đó, ảo bánh lòi. Đúng mấy còn Dusty Blood nữa. The fuck?
Mua Astral Pass có những KO bên set rồi bên kia luôn nè.
À, con này phải ngủ rồi. Má Smeargle làm hết vì vẫn lên nè.
Follow me rồi.
That could be everything. Now on this next turn, that is going to be the interesting one, because again, that's Calyrex now 2 turns of sleep.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, you can protect your own Calyrex with your Smeargle as long as it's sticking around on the field. It's down to that 1 HP. So if you go for the Wide Guard here, you don't really need to worry about the threat of Astral Barrage. And now you've taken that perfect opportunity you had to get the Nasty Plot +2 special attack. You'll get in a position where, even though it's resisted, the Astral Barrage will probably be able to be enough to pick up the knockout. And we are seeing the wake up finally on Matty's side, and that protect.
That is definitely an impactful wake-up protect, so you make sure that you're not going to be taking the damage on this turn. As Smeargle to make sure the Calyrex Shadow Rider is not going to be taking any damage either. Astral Barrage, of course, nothing into the Calyrex. And Raging Bolt, a Pokemon that's already taking a lot in this battle. This is a +2 Astral Barrage and a Raging Bolt on just a couple of HP. There is no chance. It's going to be Matty down to final 2 Pokemon.
Mày giờ chắc phải đát luôn.
How hitting the field, and curious where this could be the big difference maker, especially eyeing up that, yeah, there's a Tailwind gone, you have access to Sucker Punch, and I mean, if you can get rid of the Smeargle.
I mean, the game opens up for sure. I think the big key factor there was the Tailwind ending. So the speed interaction now between the 2 Calyrex is going to be really crucial here. Who's going to go first? But Matty definitely got the advantage. I think you need to get rid of the Smeargle though, because as long as that Wide Guard's in effect, you can't really utilize your Astral Barrage, where Kinigawa can utilize theirs. They're now +3 special attack. So regardless of the resistances you've got with the Chen Pao and the Calyrex, you are going to be subjected to that move hitting for super effective damage. The problem is, what do? Do you go for Wide Guard or do you go for Follow Me? to try and get around the sucker punch, because the sucker punch is putting a lot of pressure on itself from the Chen Pao, where it can just go for it. And, you know, one of those will be enough, and you kind of cover the bases with just a sidekick into the Smeagol there. So it's a really difficult option. Do you cover the Astro Barrage or do you cover that sucker punch?
And Sucker Punch off the table with Maddie opting to protect instead. And none of the above play, as it's going to be a Psychic going into that Smeargle. Did try to ready up the others and set maybe a Spore, but now Smeargle is gone, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider for Yuma is going to be susceptible to getting hit onto this next turn. It is, of course, a very scary Calyrex Shadow Rider with that Astral Barrage at this +3. But again, when we're looking at the Qian Bao and that Calyrex Shadow Rider on the opposing end, it looks like Maddie might be able to have these pieces.
Yeah, I think you've got enough there to be able to pick up the knockout there. Even resist it's going to be enough, and it's going to get another boost to +4 right now. It's in a pretty healthy position as well, but the question is, can you get around the Sucker Punch threat on the Chen Pao?
Con kia còn Sucker Punch mà, đúng không?
I really don't feel like you have now lost that line of support. Looks like Matty might be able to tie this one up with the last remaining Pokemon that they were able to keep at the back. But
oh, we're going to be playing one of these, and
cái này
it's not going to happen quite yet because it's going to be.
Cái này là hack não mẹ, cái này hack não mẹ rồi chứ.
This is where endgame is interesting because, of course, when you're looking at how many times you can use the Sucker Punch, well, it is limited, right? So it's going to be a little bit of the mind games of, well, making sure you can get the Sucker Punch when you try it, and a second time.
Yeah, and this is it. I think you can't really deviate from going for the Sucker Punch. I think you've got to.
Má predict mẹ não to phải luôn.
I think you can't really deviate.
Giờ để biết làm sao nữa. Thì tao cơ mấy thằng Nhật Bản là một cái thứ gì đó. Bây giờ protect luôn.
Nếu là em spam Sucker Punch để hết PP luôn. Không cầm một PP của em. Cầm một PP em mới. Đừng Sucker Punch tiếp. Đừng có nghỉ.
It's going to be the attempt at the protect, so if it was an Ice Spinner, it could have been some damage. And of course, Maddie can always go for the taunt.
Siêu tâm lý luôn.
If you all of a sudden go for anything other than this Sucker Punch, and it's a scary situation. So Maddie, this is going to be the deviation now. Protect. Yuma, was this going to be
bên kia có Sucker gì? Bên kia có Nasty Plot với lại Protect mà.
Protect yet again. So is Yuma always just going to protect? So can Maddie take advantage of this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
right?
You go for the Ice Spinner, but are you getting lured into like a false sense of security where you're like, okay, he keeps going for the Protect, he keeps going for the Nasty Plot. Am I going to take this opportunity to go for the Ice Spinner? But there's always that little doubt in the back of your mind that says, maybe this is the turn that they take the Astral Barrage, but now they're +6. They're like, we haven't got that much health on our Chen Pao, so it feels like anything is going to be able to take us down. It's a real hard situation here to do, and I think Kinigawa obviously keeping count of the Sucker Punches that have been utilized.
Giờ thì cái này là thuần tâm lý mà. Thuần độc não mà. Rồi thon nè.
This is where Maddie is going to deviate, taunt into the Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Quá chịu. Quá play.
In this set after the craziest endgame.
That was incredible. I can't believe it. Really like a book to take this set in such convincing fashion, and you've got to say that was just incredible.
Kiểu độc não á, phải cứ độc não á.
Counting them down. I'm going for the protective, going for the nasty block. Am I keeping my opponent guessing? Yes, I am. But this turn, I know that you're going to deviate, and I'm going to lock in with that Astral Barrage. You could have went the other way completely, and we could have went to a game 3, but no, Kinigawa showing why they are one of the favorites to win this year's World Championships.
That is the Japan National Champion difference right there in effect.
Ông đó là cái gì? Japan, Japan National.
And how intense those end games get with the Sucker Punches, because you know when you're down to just the 1, the 2 left, that this is where the switching can be. And wow, just played perfectly. That was everything.
That was awesome. And yeah, I think everyone that's played a game, you know, in this format has had a situation like that where you've been playing the guessing game and you're like, am I going to be the one that gives it first, or is my opponent? I'm going to be able to catch them out. It didn't start there, as we can see the replay. It really started from turn 1, where there was so much emphasis on this Tornadus. You thought that Kinigawa bought it as a support Pokemon, but really utilized it as a really good offensive tool. Utilizing the support when needed to with the Tailwind to allow that Zamazenta to get into the positions, utilizing that fighting tag terrestrialization, but this is the moment where they call out the taunt. They went for the Astral Barrage to lock it up, and yeah, just made it.
Nó thấy lúc thấy thon mà ổng hét rồi biết rồi.
Correct in that game to take it down to that position where you were in such a good spot with the Chen Pao that was so, you know, the perfect Pokemon there to deal.
Absolutely. We can a quick look at the day one usage stats overall as well. Let's see, in terms of restricted, okay, so, you know, not surprising to see the top 4, but look at that big drop-off in terms of percentages, right? Almost 50% of people...
Robot giờ đuối rồi.
I really...
I hear...
Chaz! We're here! Yeah! Well...
Robot đuối rồi. Justin Tăng với Mao Harada ở Justin Tăng vẫn đứng đầu kìa. Để hiểu sao? Kiểu Justin kiểu như thằng Hoàng của mình á. Đánh về cuối người ta hay chốc chốc lắm.
Anh Hoàng chốc đều mà.
Đâu stream Honami với lại Izawa kìa, ngon. Còn Nhật Bản. Được coi bàn sai coi có ai. Justin Tăng đánh với Pinchulin nè, Pinchulin thằng này Shin nè.
Of the Latin America region to on the all the through scene for game one. Here it is up on differently from our Shadow Rider Zamazenta core that we're so used to seeing. Here it is up on screen as our players get ready to lock in their Pokemon for game one. And
team này gặp Kauger đánh sao ta? Có Ranging Bot rồi. Kauger thì có Ranging Bot. Check rồi. Nó mạnh vãi luôn. Team này chỉ sợ mỗi Kauger thôi.
Kiểu Kyrie nó sẽ ra phát. Lông kích mẹ lông kích 120 best power.
Má không mang ấy luôn hả? Không mang cái đòn của nó luôn hả?
Yeah, and they all take advantage of the sun as well. Less so the Calyrex Ice Rider, but then the lid, the circle way to victory.
Really quite difficult to position. Let's see if Showman.
Collision con nè. Team Ho nè. Team Ho đang nổi nè. Coi đánh sao. Thấy tụi nó đang hả?
Keo sót này. Coradon keo sót kìa. Keo sót.
Gì Coradon có keo sót?
Đúng rồi, con team của ông Nhật Bản đấy.
Cái vảnh lồn à? Có lót đai hả? Vảnh lồn vậy. Ủa scale shot là spatial mà đúng không? Hay là physical ta?
Ở thách physical.
It's all about physical offense trainers. It's all about the sun, and it's all about Swiss Round 5 here at Anaheim 2025. That's the Ho, and it's the shiny, very shiny Hunter's choice, alongside Fluttermane and Koraidon and Fluttermane. And that Koraidon is about to set up the sun for both of your Chitakas.
Cái này có tính là predict không ta? Phương kế.
Bởi vì Ho của không sợ anh con nào bên kia nhá.
Khỏe vãi. Đúng. Chỉ hơi sợ Ranging Bot thôi. Mà Terra lên thì cũng không sợ.
Ranging Bot thì lại có con Archit counter nhá.
Easily going to be enough to take Fluttermane down to the Focus Sash. Probably one of the only Pokemon in the format that can then knock it out through the Focus Sash with the burn.
Cái này như Soma thua mà.
50% chance of avoiding from that sacred fire, and that is of course why Ho is the undisputed GOAT, and I don't know why I've been seeing. We haven't been seeing more of it in regulations set eye so far. Lugia, where are you? But Ho at least is here. The only one on the field as a reminder.
Protect với Shadowball.
See what these trainers are able to afford.
Rồi Protect. Fluttermane bên kia Protect. Coradon Protect luôn.
Do we have a third protect on the bingo top card? Show it to us. Or no, just the targeted move down into the Fluttermane from Sherman's.
Shadowball lên Fluttermane. Coi. Sacrifice. Đồ má. Bên cái là vui. Bên cái là vui á. Đó.
so Flutterman is going to go down at the end of this turn.
50-50 mà.
Takes an early advantage. You got two options there with the Ho-Oh as well. You can go for the tailwind and try not to play those speed games, or you know that the Ho-Oh's pretty safe, so why not lock in an attack, especially when the Flutterman side doesn't actually carry it. Like, why would you not just remove it from play? Then you've got your own Flutterman with the photosynthesis boost. That's going to be the fastest Pokemon out there, and it's putting so much pressure on. I think one of the things in the back with the Raging Bolt carrying the Life Orb is that these carrying quite a bit of Bolt, but these Life Orb ones tend to be fast and offensive, and so having a Fluttermane
thì Aaron Chip nó vẫn sửa được.
is definitely better than not having a Fluttermane in those kind of situations.
You have been playing competitive Pokemon since what, 2010, and the insight you just provided there.
Má Soma nhìn.
It's better to have 4 Pokemon than 3 sometimes.
Có 7 gacha.
You're gonna have to tell me more about that after this game, because Calyrex Ice Riders.
Terrafire thì có con anh chích sử. Nói chung kiểu gì cũng ấy. Tại vì con Calyrex Terrafire nhưng mà không có đòn để đánh anh chích nữa.
Bây giờ
it's really important for the burn as well. Có rửa máu rồi đánh chích được Koraidon just going for the protect as well. Both of these Pokemon are really pulling for the Terra choice. This is one of the downfalls sometimes of this team composition that Shoma's running. Do you go Terra Fire on the Koraidon so you don't get knocked
1-3 rồi, 3-4 rồi, đang 3-4 mà.
Terra Fire on the Calyrex so you don't take super effective damage from a Sacred Fire and maybe get burned.
Thì phải Terrafire lên thì đó, Hộp lại ham cứu Koraidon kìa anh.
How is Shoma gonna play it? Of course you have the Raging Bolt.
Cứu chứ. Cứu làm gì? Bây giờ cái quan trọng bây giờ là cứu.
Terra button trainers gonna be getting sparkly on Shoma's Koraidon.
Nói chung là cái Wincon của ổng là con Raging Bot mà.
Terrifier in the sun. And you've got the clear amulet.
Hiện tại cái Wincon của ổng là Raging Bot. Moonblood. Không quan tâm mà, không quan tâm con. Không quan tâm con Koraidon luôn mà.
Boosting the speed up as well. That's going to be a Sacred Fire that connects into the Calyrex Ice Rider. Just going to be that big one hit KO.
Cái Wincon của Soma là bây giờ là Raging Bot mà. Khó quá, con hô chắc nhiều con quá. Với lại tự nhiên
nếu đánh đúng thì không Soma phải flip câu cái
from just taking KO after KO. But you got to remember how much of a read that was, and I think the temptation for Shoma would probably be to try to get into Trick Room, but without knowing how fast or slow that Ho-Oh is. If this Raging Bolt is a bit faster, the Ho-Oh is trained a little bit on the slow side, then maybe setting up Trick Room actually wouldn't give you an advantage.
Thậm chí là Izawa không cần mang Koraidon theo luôn.
Play out here, but this Ho-Oh is just doing so much work. Shoma came in wanting to win this game one, but Yoshitaka was like,
trận này mang một con Restrict thôi là đủ win rồi. Chấp một Restrict luôn á.
Is there any way now that Shoma can turn this around? You know, it's an uphill battle, but the Koraidon did get the speed boost, which may give it the opportunity to outspeed the Fluttermane here, but with a Focus Sash, you would have to commit a Thunderclap into it. Not going to be this turn though, because there's a Protect on the Fluttermane. I think Yoshitaka playing this defensively is a really good idea, but Shoma's got to preserve all their resources as much as possible to have a chance here at 4-2 down. Targeted there into Raging that Bolt's neck is so big I couldn't see. The Protect shield is just totally blocked. But the Brave Bird now no longer super effective. Koraidon brought down to a nice, neat 100 HP, just continuing to chip away. But of course, that also, thanks to the recoil damage, will be going right back onto Ho-Oh. This is like the difficult thing now, because the Koraidon, if your Shoma, is starting to get into maybe range of a Shadow Ball. A lot of these Focus Sash Fluttermanes don't need to invest in their defensive capabilities. They just go fast and offensive, so they can really take advantage of that. And if that wasn't enough and the Thunderclap isn't enough to take the KO onto Ho-Oh, you've got another potentially Brave Bird coming out there. You got to be thinking at this stage as well what Yoshitaka has had in the back. Maybe that's the consolation prize here for Shoma. Try to take one knockout here and see what running so they can adjust that for game 2.
So potentially a failed thunderclap there, not activating because
chấp bấm thôn luôn chứ.
The Taunt, Koraidon can no longer pretend, but it's just attacking this turn anyway. Now with another flame charge onto Fluttermane, brought down to its focus sash. So, you know, if there is a Pokemon that might be able to turn around for Shoma, it's going to be this speedy Koraidon. It's filled up with gas, but it's now going to have to take another Brave Bird, hanging on with just 4 HP now. Yoshitaka whittling away, Ho-Oh rising from the ashes.
You've got to think there's probably something with a little bit of priority in the back as well, whether it's the Incineroar with a fake out. You've got the opportunity for Raging Bolt to come out with a Thunderclap as well. So lots of options here still for Yoshitaka.
I really like Yoshitaka not revealing those two Pokemon in the back.
Giờ chỉ đánh được Flamberjack thôi.
You have so many more options in Shoma's team. You do not want to give an inch away to take a mile. Don't want to give anything away. Reveal the game plan means that Shoma will be even more in the back heading into the next game. And there it is, Ho-Oh switching. All the nicer thanks to its regenerator ability. So it will have recovered some HP back in its Pokeball. Now Incineroar has joined the fray instead. Clear Amulet on the Koraidon, so the Intimidate not going to do anything there. Raging Bolt doesn't mind an Intimidate drop.
But of course, the Incineroar coming in has got the Rocky Helmet as well. So that's one way that this 4 HP Koraidon could get knocked out this turn.
Yeah, so tempting to go for that fighting time move into the Incineroar here, but yeah, going to be the low kick, which is an adaptation we've seen heading into the World Championships as well. Still massive damage, and as you love to say, Ben, of course, this is a format with lots of heavy Pokemon as regulators say, oh, we've got 2 restricted. Incineroar not the heaviest, but still big damage boosted by the Orichalcum Pulse.
Yeah, definitely enough to put some pressure on the Incineroar still, but yeah, revealing Incineroar not necessarily much of a surprise in these sort of matchups. Certainly when you've got a Koraidon, you want that fake out pressure. So I think this is a great way for Yoshitaka to close up this game safely without actually revealing too much information, too much.
Giờ có biết chắc đam này chứ. Mà chắc đam này gì? Hai con đều yếu máu. Đấy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you had Incineroar. We haven't seen that in competitive Pokemon since about 10 minutes ago.
Incineroar?
I think it's called Incineroar. I know we say it so rarely, but I don't know. Well, we could just call it Fire Cat for now. But Shoma just taking that time to decide, heading into game 2, what the game plan is going to be. It looks like their backs against the wall. We saw them hover over the forfeit button there, but deciding, well, no, I can just use this time to study up and decide how I'm going to flip things around to make sure that Yoshitaka doesn't get such a decisive advantage heading into the next game.
I feel like we have these sort of situations pretty much every single time, and when you're on the world stage, there is no better time to just take a little bit of extra time to think and process exactly what you're going to be playing for the next match. But I think that's the forfeit locked in there, and it is Yoshitaka taking game. If the Raging Bolt was
maybe somehow is
around to see the
this Japan battle on the stage. Which of them is going to be emerging on top with the 2015 World Champion Shoma Onami going up against the only Ho-Oh bringer out there at the World Championships, Yoshitaka Izawa. Going to be Calyrex Ice Rider in the lead this time around, so we could be seeing a Trick Room strategy online. And with a Terra Fire, I'm not sure there's much Yoshitaka can do to deny that.
Yeah, it's a perfect switch up here from Shoma. Not going to take the early
Trick Room lên, bật Trick Room lên thì chắc đánh được một chút.
Quite so readily in this position, and although the Fluttermane can go for a taunt and shut down a Trick Room. We've seen time after time in this format where Calyrex just wants to go on the offensive straight away with a Glacial Lance. Now, that could be an opportunity for Shoma to just go straight for the Trick Room, but it could also just be an opportunity to get some damage on the Fluttermane, take it down to its Focus Sash, put some damage onto the Ho-Oh, make sure that that's not so difficult to be able to knock out. But one thing that we have to think about is whether or not this Ho-Oh is Terra Water and sort of shut down super effective damage or the big damage from Glacial Lance.
You're so right about the taunt on the Fluttermane. Leaving the field and joining in its place will be, of course, that dropping the attack stats of both Calyrex Ice Rider and Incineroar for Shoma. Now time for that terrestrialization, time to get sparkly, and it's going to be Calyrex Ice Rider. You've got a bunch of fire types in this game. I want to embrace that side of things as well. Calyrex Ice Rider has become Calyrex Fire Rider, charging up the surroundings. Now Ho-Oh just will be scanning out with its Protect. Let's not forget there's no clear amulet on this Calyrex, so any Glacial Lancers won't be hitting as hard. The U-turn, a little bit of Rocky helmet chip damage, which onto a cat as bulky as Incineroar will go such a long way. And now Sherman can pivot something in from the back.
The U-turn is so nice here because this is the opportunity for Shoma to get that Raging Bolt on the field without too much risk. You know that the Fluttermane's already left the field. That's the primary Pokemon that you're trying to avoid. You know that the Ho-Oh is protected. Here comes the Raging Bolt to put some pressure on. Glacial Lance coming out, not risking any form of taunt shenanigans, but now there's no taunt on the field, but there is a fake out.
Fake out that could, of course, deny the trick from heading into the next turn as well. Raging Bolt pressuring the Ho-Oh, and Ho-Oh here has Terra Water, so it cannot get away from that Electrify weakness, and that is something that Yoshitaka can very much use to their advantage.
You know, the other thing that I'm thinking is a really good strategy here for this Calyrex. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but Leech Seed actually onto Ho-Oh looks really, really good in this kind of situation, just to gently whittle away at your opponent's HP bar. And yeah, maybe it switches out and gets all that Regenerator HP back, but I think it could be a way to start pressuring it while you're playing defensively, while you're protecting from these fake outs and pivots.
Speaking of protect, that's exactly what Raging Bolt is going for here. Move targeted down into Shoma's Raging Bolt. And now we turn our attention over to the Ho-Oh. A Brave Bird now into the Terrifier Calyrex Ice Rider. Takes that handily, and it's going to be the Calyrex responding with a Glacial Lance here. Again, just good for some chip. Of course, neutral onto the Ho-Oh there.
Yeah, it's like, I like the fact that the Ho-Oh isn't actually going for the terrestrialization in this early game. I think it makes it maybe a little bit more difficult for Yoshitaka's end game, where you don't necessarily want to commit it until you know that's exactly what you want to do. Whereas Sho's committed it quite early, and if Yoshitaka takes advantage of that, then maybe there's a really nice route to an end game there. I'm just kind of wondering what Yoshitaka's plan is for this Raging Bolt now, because there's some calls to make in this turn. If the Ho-Oh plays on the defensive, you can just take advantage of it by going for a Thunderbolt and another Glacial Lance into the Incineroar slot.
Con Calyrex còn tác dụng không?
Whittle away that supportive pieces that Yoshitaka didn't need to really take advantage of in the last game, but actually this game could be quite important.
Yes, another Brave Bird, and that Leech Seed is looking like an even more attractive proposition now, especially with the lack of high horsepower. Finally, the Raging Bolt
chắc là
KOs this Ho-Oh. It's returning all the way back to Johto, and Yoshitaka's Pokemon.
Cuối cùng không giết được Ho-Oh. Thành tựu đầu tiên.
Is now removed from contention. Parting shot means that Raging Bolt won't be hitting as hard. Now Yoshitaka can pivot something in from the back.
What do you pivot in this situation? Because whatever you pivot is likely to take a Glacial Lance in this spot. And yeah, okay, the Calyrex has taken an Intimidate, but it's definitely not something that you want to be on the pointy end of.
As Fluttermane will be rejoining the field. No, absolutely, those Glacial Lances have been sharpened. But Leech Seed now will be able to chip away at this Fluttermane. And it's a really good call because you're immediately going to break the focus sash on Yoshitaka's Fluttermane.
And with probably an Incineroar coming in for Yoshitaka here, there's a perfect opportunity to compound that recovery. This Calyrex set has been gaining popularity over the last few months and certainly seen a big rise in NAIC and our grassroots tours in between NAIC and the World Championships for good reason. It's these situations where you just need that extra little bit of HP in an end game. But now we see the Koraidon coming in for Yoshitaka and putting some real pressure on.
Giải được 50% bài rồi đó. 50% nữa thôi.
Maximum damage from the low kick. So it's kind of like having a close combat but without having to take those special defense and special defense drops.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you're not going to be softening up your Koraidon that way, and we can see that.
Xong con Koraidon nó scale shot con Raging Bolt. Hết vị.
In the previous game, which is threatening down those scale shots, which if Shoma does have their Koraidon back, they can no longer translate away from their Dragon type weakness, and they do.
Yeah, it's like. I'm struggling in this position because there's a lot that could go right and a lot that could go wrong for both of our players here. If you don't target down the Raging Bolt, then Raging Bolt is just going to start dropping Draco Meteors into your Dragon Pulses, should I say, into that Koraidon. But can I do
Đi ra qua rút Fluttermane ra và đưa Incineroar vào. Rồi thêm. Má không cho Calyrex chơi game mà. Rồi Soma rút Raging Bolt ra luôn.
its neck back in, switching in its place.
Đưa NC vào tiếp.
Sherma's own Incineroar again. Now, with Koraidon holding the loaded dice instead of Clear Amulet, Yoshitaka's own Koraidon will be suffering from that attack. Trying to get Sparkly over on Yoshitaka's side of the field. Koraidon has now gone for his Terrifier.
Yeah, I like this play quite a lot. You don't take super effective damage from the Dragon Pulse.
Quá nguy hiểm để tới ra rồng. Rồi skill shot kìa.
Đúng rồi, thật đấy.
Now, the loaded dice means that it's going to hit at least 4 times, but do we have a cheeky fifth? That's going to be 4. No, but it's not like it was close to getting any kind of KO there either. But crucially, now the Koraidon has got a boost to its speed, but a drop to its defense. Calyrex has found the wiggle room to set up that trick room. Is it going to be the right call here? The lead seed is going such a long way. The leftovers are going such a long way. Maybe this horse has what it takes to weather the storm.
With the Terrifier and the Intimidates going down and actually affecting the Koraidon, also, I feel like we're getting close to the end of Sun in this position as well, which would make the Koraidon on both sides of the field feel just that little bit weaker, and certainly would allow some time for the Calyrex to get some lead seeds down, start to maintain that HP recovery to keep it in the game for a long time. I think Shoma's doing a really good job here of positioning it well enough that even though that it's got some Intimidates, it's still actually putting some pressure on overall, and knowing that what he's got in the back actually could be what he needs to close out this game. Raging Bolt in Trick Room for a Koraidon team on your opposition is not a happy place to be.
Yeah, that's why Leech Seed goes such a long way when your Calyrex is that intimidated. But speaking of going such a long way, that's going to be Calyrex going all the way back to his trainer and now coming
Raging Bolt ra.
Raging Bolt once more with the sun boosting its photosynthesis. This means likely that will be a special attack boost there, as Koraidon won't be able to move. Just the fake out. The fake out, but of course going after Sherma's own potential indication that Sherma has the slower Incineroar.
Hai này mày bắt shot là đỉnh à.
Train Incineroar approximately a billion different ways, so
yeah, this is definitely the avoidance of the gentleman's rule of VGC. You never fake out the fake out Pokemon. You always go.
Như tiếng Việt á, điện 10.000V á.
In case your Incineroars are trained to stand a bit differently.
Ủa thì hồi xưa nó dịch bằng tiếng Nhật mà, tên tiếng Nhật mà hồi xưa cứ kêu điện 10 lúc mà hồi mới chơi á, mới chơi game á, biết Thunderbolt á. Tự nhiên nghe điện 10.000V nghe vô lý vậy luôn. Xong rồi sau này chơi game tiếng Nhật nữa. Điện 10.000V thật.
Nên tụi em mới thấy cái bản tiếng Anh tới nhập rồi tiếng Anh chứ là bám sát tiếng Anh.
Nhiều cái lắm, giống như Fire Blast á. Fire Blast tiếng Nhật là Diamond G á, là lửa chữ đại á. Lửa chữ đại. Nó tẻ ra 5 hướng mà nó giống chữ đại á, gọi là Diamond G, lửa chữ đại.
I think it's going to be a little bit tough, especially with the Thunderbolt coming in.
Đó, cái này là Man Volt đó. Man là 10.000, U là 10. Man là vàng nhá. 10 vạn volt.
That's a massive amount of damage with a critical hit, but it might only be hidden twice, given that loaded dice is not done. But no, it's going to be the 3-time Raging Bolt has been felled.
It's a really great KO there, really brave for Yoshitaka to actually.
Còn NC đúng không?
Some sort of defensive play with
Wincon là con ấy mà bây giờ speed cao mẹ rồi. Koraidon ra cũng vậy à, Koraidon ra nó skill shot cho chết.
Nhưng mà bị giảm thử thách rồi với lại ai mình cũng giảm đép, con Koraidon thì ăn cái top off mà chết à.
Taking those key knockouts is, I think, taking the key knockout on the Raging Bolt is definitely one of.
Vấn đề là bây giờ con NC bên kia ra. Ra phát cao.
Koraidon has been ramping up the last few turns, start to come into their own.
Yeah, that's a really good point. As Trick Room expires, Yoshitaka is going to have a very, very speedy Koraidon indeed. Sherma deciding just what to bring in this situation. Still in Trick Room, so you want to be able to benefit from those turns while you can. Yoshitaka just down to that Incineroar. So just going to be the solitary left Intimidate drop. And then that option's not going to be available, stuck on the field.
Incineroar coming in and getting a fake out. So there's no chance that both Incineroar are going to speed tie here with a fake out pressure on both sides of the field. And the clear amulet, of course, blocking that Incineroar Intimidate from affecting the Koraidon. really good place for Shoma to be in this situation as well, because I think both Pokemon, both the Koraidon and the Incineroar, have a good opportunity to knock out this Koraidon on this turn. And it's also been intimidated a few times. There's something we do have to call out here. But a scale shot into Koraidon on Shoma's side of the field once we get out.
Nếu scale shot 5 lần thì giờ cầu scale shot tầm 3 lần thôi là bên Soma win.
I think even after the intimidates, you're in a good spot to really take this game.
Yeah, but there's a big if, isn't it, without the loaded dice. So let's see.
Ủa cái pha này bên kia. À bên
means that it's 1-1. We will
Ủa
be heading.
sao từ bỏ sớm vậy? Risk lên chứ. Hèn.
Đánh rụp rà quá. Em thấy rà thật.
Thực ra lúc đó vẫn có cửa thắng mà ta.
Đúng rồi anh, đúng rồi, có cửa thắng nhưng mà nó hơi lâu quá. Kiểu có vẻ có nhờ may mắn nữa.
Thì không, thì mình vẫn risk chứ. Đằng nào chả thua. Đằng nào mình có một game trước rồi. Có cần đích gì đâu mà sợ.
Hay là anh giấu thông tin ra.
Giấu thông tin gì nữa? Open sheet mà chứ không phải như close sheet như hồi xưa đâu.
Không hiểu lắm.
Thì cái pha đó không hiểu nữa á. Nói chung là vẫn có cửa thắng mà. Đánh đúng cửa thắng thôi.
Ra kiểu em thấy em luôn này cũng kiểu em đang nghĩ là Soma thắng rồi, em này thì anh gọi lại cho người xem đấy anh.
So I like this adaptation here from Yoshitaka, not leaving the Fluttermane here, thinking like, well, if the Calyrex comes out, I don't want to play those taunt versus attack shenanigans in this game. I much prefer to have what I now think is a faster fake out in the Incineroar to try and put some pressure on that way. The Clear Amulet doing a lot of work, of course, on the Ho-Oh, and making sure that it's not falling foul of those Intimidate drops. And so you can start.
Nhưng mà sao mà biết biết nên làm gì rồi đó.
Onto those supportive pieces, maybe try to knock out that Incineroar a little bit earlier, make the Trick Room environment just that little bit less viable. That was the thing that catapulted Shoma to victory in Game 2.
Can Yoshitaka deny it though? Shoma pretty locked in on the Pokemon they want to bring, and I think that makes total sense. It all comes down to who's going to be playing better between these two trainers. They've got a good understanding now of how each other's teams is working. Is it going to be your 2015 world champion progressing through undefeated to Swiss round 6? Will it be Yoshitaka top 32 PAM championships this year? Terrestrialization time. Calyrex Ice Rider goes for its Terrifier once more.
Ủa sợ gì ta?
A lot of firepower being threatened down.
À sợ Sacrifice.
Into that slot. And with a
ép được cái
through to a win here. Fake out, Shoma's Incineroar not moving. The Sacred Fire this time, so the wrong call from Yoshitaka. Or a call that didn't quite work in their favor. It also means you can
nó thành hệ lửa rồi.
Terrifier. Calyrex is able to get those seeds sprouting up from the ground, and I think that's a really lovely position to be able to get it earlier than it was in the previous game.
Yeah, because the Calyrex is now kind of safe to sit on the field a little bit. Pressuring the Glacial Lances after you put the Leech Seed down is great, because the Ho-Oh is more incentivized to switch out from Yoshitaka, and when it switches out, if whatever comes in takes a Glacial Lance for the privilege, then it's putting yourself in a much better spot and taking the advantage of the board position that you're creating. I think the really nice thing for Yoshitaka is that the Incineroar was able to get an Intimidate off onto the Calyrex Ice Rider, and they start to stop that being such a big threat. And I'm wondering, actually, thinking about it now, whether the Calyrex actually switching out into one of the Pokemon in the back for Yoshitaka and taking that Leech Seed recovery could be a really nice scenario here, where the Brave Birds are doing a good amount of damage, but they're not really threatening any KOs right off the bat.
Knockoff, though, also not threatening the KO, but removing the leftovers is so massive. Means that it's just down to that Leech Seed recovery now onto that Calyrex Ice Rider. The Incineroar is going to be scuttling to the back for Shoma, coming in its place. Let's see what Shoma's going to be locking into. It's going to be Raging Bell and Koraidon in the back once more, of course, and Raging Bell so pivotal to threaten down damage onto this Ho-Oh.
Yeah, so like the big piece of the puzzle here, Glacial Lance coming back, it's only 1 Intimidate down, so does do pretty respectable damage to both Pokemon here. At the Leech Seed, actually, you can see how significant the HP damage is, but now also the HP recovery. Worth noting that the higher the HP of the target of Leech Seed, the more HP you're recovering turn after turn, and Ho-Oh, as with many other restricteds in this format, really do have quite high HP stats. So you normally get quite a lot of benefit from getting a Leech Seed onto those restricted Pokemon.
Of course, the drawback is you're not running another damaging move here, but often we see something like high horsepower, maybe a close combat, which also isn't that great into Ho-Oh. So Leech Seed could really put in a lot of work here. It was such a clinic that Yoshitaka put in.
Giờ Ho rút vào để lấy regenerator nè.
That soloed the entire game. It's brilliant to be able to see Sherma find their footing and find their way to come back into this matchup.
I think that's a really great call there, Charlie, because you know it's really difficult when you go up against a team that you don't recognise instantly. Maybe they do know of each other's teams, but when you're not quite sure what the matchup entails, you've got to find that game one where you can get a little bit of a handle on it. That's what Sherma's doing so well here with that Thunderbolt into the Incineroar.
And calling the fact that Ho would switch, and it brings Incineroar down dangerously low, but now Calyrex is going to be a little bit softened up with that Glacial Lance that you said it was sharpening, Ben, but I think it's feeling a little bit blunter now after that planting shot. And now Yoshitaka switches in it from the back. Gonna be the Ho-Oh or the unrevealed Pokemon?
Như chưa có gì xảy ra cả. Má.
That could be coming out here rather than a Lance here, but Trick Room is the move of choice. So I really like this from Shoma, trying to predict that the Koraidon might come in for Yoshitaka and try to go for those sort of speedier plays and bring in the Raging Bolt and try to take advantage of the fact that the overall speed advantage will be on Shoma's side in this situation.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, this matchup, because you don't want to set up the Trick Room too early. In both games, we haven't seen Shoma immediately go for the Trick Room option. That's partly due to the taunt in the second game, because, you know, there's still some speed tiers and interactions that you have to be very careful about, and let's see if the Trick Room is going to benefit them here. Of course, Ho-Oh isn't the fastest Pokemon, so it's definitely not just all over for Yoshitaka here, even though Trick Room is up.
Worth noting that this is an Assault Vest on the Yoshitaka's side, so if anything's going to be taking both Glacial Lances at 2-, but also those big attacks from the Life Orb Raging Bolt on Shoma's side, it's going to be this Assault Vest Raging Bolt.
Terra Fairy, so Dragon moves will be doing 0 damage into that slot. Ho-Oh just going to be scouting out for a turn with his Protect. Now Ho-Oh not taking damage from the Glacial Lance, but certainly Yoshitaka's Raging Bolt will just go for a little bit.
Mình nhảy nãy giờ rồi, có đam mới lạ.
Attempted a stomp trap look like into the Ho-Oh there. Well,
Recommento. Xong.
Goodbye, yeah. That Raging Bolt is 100% down and out. This is the advantage Yoshitaka needed to take in this game 3.
I think this Trick Room environment is actually starting to benefit Yoshitaka a little bit more than Shoma here.
Giờ là gì? Bên kia rút Ho vào đưa Inci ra.
A Draco Meteor would still probably be enough to knock out the Koraidon in this spot, which kind of forces Shoma to bring the Incineroar back in and start trying to play the slow game. But if you do that, then there's an Incineroar in the back for Yoshitaka that can switch in.
Ủa mà sao giờ Inci nó cầm AV luôn rồi? Ủa má, hèn vậy?
Some big thunderbolts coming down into Shoma's side, and Calyrex with 2- on its attack is not going to be able to knock this Raging Bolt out anytime soon.
Má, kiểu xài AV nó thành cái gì nó sao á? Cái mạnh của Inci là bắn shot mà đéo sẽ thành xài AV.
On my Ho-Oh, but that is valuable information for Shoma to use too. But at the same time, Shoma's now lost their Raging Bolt, so the Ho-Oh is looking all the safer, and it could just be that Ho-Oh once more can channel
để ra cái con Aokin phải luôn.
to revive those legendary beasts in Generation 2, and maybe see Yoshitaka
vừa tạo thêm rình bút điện nha, vừa được cái BT của bọn Paradox bút stat lên nữa, rồi thêm cái stat của hệ, xong rồi thêm cái effect. được á. Mà nó off không chết kìa.
Lý sĩ này là classical lem.
The Draco Meteor is going to be connecting again, and Sherman's Calyrex, of course, it had its special attack harshly reduced after the first one.
Rồi giờ nhảy bên kia rút mát 3 bậc rồi. Hai bậc là tao thấy tao mua bấm forfeit rồi đó.
Lý sĩ thôi, rồi đã am classical lem chỉ nghe cái lý sĩ thôi anh.
Soma đó, Soma ơi, bữa hành đứa nào đó. Soma bữa hành đứa nào bên mình đó. Hình như năm ngoái à? Năm ngoái mình gặp Nhật rồi đúng không? Hay là giải khác? Rút VR, rút ra đúng rồi nè. Double cũng được. Rồi bên kia rút U-turn. Ok.
Yes, like the Incineroar coming out here is usually the positive momentum that you really want in that situation. I think that's still true with the Koraidon being able to come in here and to be able to be in the sun as Yoshitaka's Koraidon just reset that up. But it does allow one Pokemon to come into the back and give Yoshitaka that little bit of positive momentum. And I don't think there's momentum as positive as bringing a Ho-Oh in at full HP.
There certainly isn't. You do still, though, have access to Incineroar over on Sherma's side of the field, and that's going to be such a thorn in Yoshitaka's side, just wanting to remove that as quickly as possibly can. Now, this could be a turn where the scale shot on Yoshitaka's product comes into contention once more. Sherma has gone for the Terrafire onto the Calyrex Ice Rider, and that means that their own Koraidon is so vulnerable to their Dragon-type moves. And let's not forget that this game has not had the loaded dice removed, so it will be hitting at least 4 times.
One thing to note as well, and thank you for Shoma for showing us that, is that
let's sit, đúng rồi, let's sit đi. Má đánh sao để con Ho-Oh nó hồi full cây rồi, biết nó hốp cỡ nào rồi.
The next turn, and I really like the way that Shoma now is trying to position ready for that to happen, bring
cũng được.
in, probably play a little bit defensively with the Calyrex and try
coi con Koraidon nó đá một cái nè.
Now onto the Ho-Oh. Again, so lovely for Sherma to be able to make this Calyrex unremovable or near to there as a Brave Bird now connects into Shoma's Incineroar, swooping down from the skies. Not enough for the KO, but how about this collision course, this signature move of Koraidon? Yep, Shoma's Calyrex has fed on its last grass. That will be Calyrex returning to the stable.
Thắng hộ tao.
Sherma is just the one Pokemon
đánh chóc lòi luôn.
The Koraidon, and it could just be that this restricted duo that we I cannot emphasize this enough.
Chấp niệm cái Glacial Eye mà. Glacial Spear mà.
I really like the way that Yoshitaka is playing this as well. Is just hedging. Well, I'm either going to try to get a knockoff on or knockout on one Pokemon or the other, where the terrestrialization has been
rồi giờ còn đúng hai con mà con Ho không sợ luôn.
Yoshitaka's Pokemon are so high.
Nút dưới kìa anh.
It doesn't really matter
này kìa. Nigeru kìa. Bấm Nigeru đi.
Also, Yoshitaka has that Koraidon advantage with having the scale shot at their disposal as well to be able to try and deal with the Koraidon on Shoma's side. So a big advantage here for Yoshitaka. He's played this game 3 so well after coming out with a lost game 2. Shoma just changing up the matchup so much, and Yoshitaka finding a way to carry a lot of success here in game 3.
Something you have to bear in mind here, Ben, is Shoma's your time is ticking all the way down here. So timer things could come into contention, but I mean with this KO onto Incineroar, Yoshitaka overwhelmingly has the Pokemon advantage here. 3 to Shoma's 1. Let's see just how swiftly this game will be concluded. The low kick, not enough for the KO onto the Koraidon, but yeah, this could just be the Area 0 hero that is just being given a big no.
Could well be. I mean, both Pokemon here do have the opportunity to knock out this Koraidon at the same time. Koraidon can only attack one Pokemon at once. And, I think it's probably feeling quite sad about that particular scenario there. But Yeah, well played to both of our players here as we get into the final turn. The scale shot.
Rồi xong. Lót đài scale shot. Đúng rồi, đánh đúng mà. Đánh đúng mà. 5 cái. Scale shot của animation cái gì đâu. Xong rồi. Và đánh. Quá trời chấp luôn kìa. Quá nhanh rồi. Nhìn mặt lão sao mang ngu luôn rồi.
You don't get many opportunities at the World Championships to go on stage. You gotta take what you can get here.
Yeah, Yoshitaka used follow me and it was super effective.
Đụng má nhây nữa.
Unfortunately, just seems not to have enough gas left in the tank. Shoma looking like they're locking in the, about to lock in the.
Nigaru kìa. Có Nigaru.
Yeah, give me some more. May as well. But you also, of course, want to play to every single one of your outs here. It is the World Championships. You came here for a reason. Flew halfway across the globe. Let's see if we can secure it. As now Raging Bolt Terra Fairy joins the field once more. Yoshitaka again, just dotting the i's, crossing the t's, making sure there's no room to be caught off guard by Shoma's team. But with this final collision course being given on his own medicine on Shoma's side, the 2015 world champion has been felled. Yoshitaka Izawa, the only Ho-Oh bringer in the tournament, had just stand their ticket undefeated.
Ủa sao ma như là World 19 đúng không ta?
Không phải.
Wow. I mean, really, wow.
Tao nhớ Soma Cham mà ta. Mà nói chung năm nay đây một mà mấy Cham đi gần hết rồi. Goofy với lại Luca. Luffy với Luca. Thôi ngồi tí, tao đi có một chuyện tí, lát vô coi tiếp.
A testament to how good of a player he is, and I'm really excited now to say that there's a good chance, it's not guaranteed, there's a good chance that Ho-Oh might be making day 2.
That would be amazing.
Sorry if I've stopped that in its tracks, but I think
let's hope not, Ben. Let's hope not. Let's take a look at what went down in that game. A super effective Draco Meteor that was connecting down into Shoma's Raging Bolt. And that Raging Bolt, of course, was such a thorn into Yoshitaka's Ho-Oh there. The collision course follow up. Just, Yoshitaka able to pivot around so well and saying, you know what? Even if you do set up Trick Room, I know how I can battle against it. You know, game 2, maybe it caught me off guard a little bit. But look at that. Shoma's resources were dwindled so early on.
Yeah, it's like taking advantage as well of Shoma locking in the terrestrialization on the Calyrex Ice Rider, because you kind of have to in front of a Ho-Oh. And so if you're sitting in that position as Yoshitaka, you're thinking, well, yeah, okay, they're probably going to lock it in. We saw the turn 1, a Sacred Fire still went into that slot, sort of hedging your bets a little bit. But actually, it's a kind of safe assumption that the Calyrex would have to play on the defensive with its terrestrialization after it went so wrong for Shoma in game 1, but then saving the terrestrialization of your own until you get that position with the Raging Bolt. And playing the Raging Bolt mirror is never a fun thing when you have to worry about Draco Meteors or Dragon Pulses crossing paths and seeing which one was going to go first. And the Terra Fairy on the Raging Bolt on Yoshitaka's side really did pay dividends for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the scale shot on Koraidon too, it's wonderful to see that making a reappearance. The issue is, of course, Incineroar is so prevalent, and yeah, you can run all sorts of different moves on Incineroar, but knockoff is 9 times out of 10 gonna be there. And once that loaded dice is removed, scale shot is just, there's so much variance that comes into play. But fascinating. And let's not forget, loaded dice is only an item we have access to as of Generation 9. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing that, it's still just all of these little things that come into contention to, vie for the title of the most valuable item, and just things that we get used to so quickly.
It especially makes sense as well with the Koraidon and the Ho-Oh kind of fighting for the clear amulet, and a lot of players in those situations have opted for Life Orb on the Koraidon, but actually taking a little step back and thinking, what does my restricted duo actually need in this team? And I think for Ho-Oh, especially being Terra Water, really needs a way to target down Pokemon like Miraidon really effectively, but also to be able to take KOs on Pokemon with Focus Sash. Say a Chen Pao as well can cause some problems, I think, for that sort of team archetype sometimes. And I really like the adaptation there to hone in on what actually matters for your team as opposed to playing the thing that in a vacuum seemed like the most logical choice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful to see a restricted Pokemon that we so rarely see. Just again, where's the Lugia? Show me a Lugia. Somebody. Do we have any Lugia out there?
I'll show you a Lugia backstage if that makes you happy.
Yeah, it's you know, just a copy of Pokemon Silver or something. it would be tonic to my soul. Yeah. Well, congratulations to Yoshitaka there. But Sherman, you know, okay, they've lost one game, but they still have the luxury of being able to lose at least one more before they're getting a little bit nervous about making day 2 here. So let's see. Let's keep our eyes on these trainers. It's no surprise to see Japan having such a strong showing so far on day 1 of the World Championships. But Ben, or Johto rising out of the ashes from what with Ho-Oh, sorry, rising in the Flow-Oh. I think we're ready for our interview, so let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am so excited to hear from the winner of that last match, Yoshitaka, who has brought Ho-Oh to the world stage. You are the only player to bring Ho-Oh to the World Championships. It's your first Worlds. How does it feel?
最初のワールズなんですけど、どういう気持ちですか？
とても今、はい、ほっとしております。
I feel really comfortable right now. Feel happy and stuff.
You just defeated Shoma Honami, of course, the 2015 world champion, one of the most famous players in the history of Japan. What does it mean to be able to play him at the world stage and defeat him?
今の試合でショーマン選手倒したんですけど、この世界大会の舞台で戦えるということはどういう気持ちですか？
やはり憧れのプレイヤーの一人でしたので、もうその憧れの方に勝てたというのはもう本当に嬉しいです。
He's someone that I look up to, so being able to compete against him and beat him is an amazing feeling.
I want to ask a little bit about Ho-Oh. Why did you pick that Pokemon for this tournament?
なぜHo-Ohを選びましたか、この大会？
今やっぱり流行りのクロバドザマゼンタにとても強く出れるのではないかと思い、それでHo-Ohは一番最初に選出しようというふうに思っておりました。
He thought it would match up well against Calyrex and Zamazenta, so that's why he was definitely choosing Ho-Oh.
I believe this is your first time at the World Championships. You're doing so well. Do you have any advice to give to players who might be just starting out?
最初の世界大会で本当に順調に滑り出してるんですけど、他に初めて来るプレイヤーに対してアドバイスとかありますか？
やっぱり緊張はするんですけど、もう楽しんでやることが大事かなというふうに自分は思っております。
You'll definitely get nervous, but I think the most important thing is just to have fun.
Before we say goodbye, how are you feeling right now? You're one game away, of course, from making it to day 2. Are you nervous? Are you feeling good?
Day 2に進出するまであと1戦なんですけど、今どういう気持ちですか？
ここまで来たからには頑張りたいと思います。
So I've made it this far, so I want to push through to the end.
I love it. Well, I think you've gained a lot of brand new fans here, especially being the only Ho-Oh player in the tournament. So congratulations on your victory. We are all rooting for you, and we'll be throwing it to a short break, but don't go anywhere because round 6 will be starting soon.
it. And Kevin Hahn throughout the season has proved he's the best junior in the world. EUIC champion, NAIC champion, and now world champion in the juniors division for the Pokemon video game.
My name is Kevin Hahn and I'm from Pennsylvania. I'd be a water type because it's very calm and relaxing, and I feel like that fits my personality pretty well. I first got into competitive Pokemon when my brother won NAIC 2022. It was really cool, so I was like, I want to do that too. I just love competing in Pokemon, and I love how fun it is. I love how successful I am, and I love that it's a strategy game and you really have to think a lot or else you won't do well. Overall, Pokemon is just a really fun game. I learned how to fail and accept it gracefully. It was very tough for me in the start. I always wanted to just get first and nothing else. But now that I've competed a lot more and a lot more knowledgeable about failing, I'm completely fine if I get last. Even if I got last in this World Championships, I'd still be fine since I had a lot of fun. One of my favorite memories is when I won UIC. It was my first major win. I've never won an international or world championships before that. My number one goal was to win an international. So to have won 2 internationals and a world championship seems just completely crazy for me.
It continues the avalanche of success for Kevin Hahn this season.
Even if you're down a game and in a losing position in the world championships, never give up, because you can always turn that around with some good plays. And you should always never give up because it might be the only chance you ever get. I want to give a shout out to all my friends and all my coaches. And I also want to give a biggest shout out to my family and especially my brother. I wouldn't even be into Pokemon without him. He helped me be way more successful, and I always want to be more like him.
Watch it afterwards to see what I'm doing in the game and become more aware. I don't really think about it in the moment, I just perform. So I record it and then watch it afterwards to actually, have the practice mindset, see where I can improve.
Bom, eu amo muito Pokémon e uma das coisas que eu mais gosto de fazer é dar bastante carinho pra eles. Por incrível que pareça, dar carinho pra eles faz com que, às vezes, ele consiga dar uma evasiva. Apesar de não funcionar isso tanto no campeonato oficial do VGC, é muito legal ver ele saindo da Pokébola com aqueles coraçõezinhos, porque ele ama muita gente.
Para melhorar, eu sempre tento observar o estado do jogo, do oponente, sempre tento pensar à frente o que ele vai fazer. Eu acho que um treinador, para melhorar, ele pode ver os resultados de outros campeonatos, né, e sempre tentar progredir.
Eu gosto de rever os meus erros, ver onde eu poderia ter melhorado durante a partida e a partir disso ver o que eu poderia ter feito melhor naquele momento.
Bueno, para poder jugar mejor Pokémon GO es importante salir siempre a capturar muchos Pokémon, aprovechar los eventos al máximo para sacar los Pokés con mejores IVs y siempre estar entrenando constantemente en las batallas del juego para poder seguir mejorando.
Whoa. The Go Zone Diner is our territory. We were gonna use this to park our Maridons.
No way. We are gonna play electrode volleyball tonight. I thought we were going swimming. No, we went swimming yesterday. We're playing volleyball tonight.
No, this is not big enough for the both of us, and there's only one way to settle this.
PV plush.
Oh, it's on. Okay, you ready for this? I'll show first as a sign of good faith. We got Victory Bell.
Flush me, bro.
Hey, that's our move.
Boom, I got the Obama, so I think I have the type advantage here. Ice in the grass.
Yeah, but I mean, we got Acid and we got Sludge Bomb. We got some good attacks that we can hit back with.
Is that a Shadow Victory Bell I'm looking at?
Oh, it's always a Shadow Victory Bell.
I think 2 Protect Shields remaining. I got the Powder Snow. I got the Icy Wind. I think the Jocks take this.
I don't know. 2 shields on a Shadow Victory Bell? We all know how that goes.
Okay, all right. You got me there. I have a crazy idea. What if we simultaneous KO? And what should we do next?
Go swimming?
Let's go swimming!
You know, Ben, I aspire to feel as fulfilled as a nose pass. It looked north, and it never looked back. Welcome, Pokemon trainers. We're back at the Pokemon World Championships 2025. If you can't hear Ben's laughter there, it's just because he's not laughing into the microphone. It's deafening, let me tell you, back here. But Ben, just get that headset back on, and yeah, okay, and we're good to go. Ben has joined me back on the desk. Look at that, all of that laughter. Yeah, incredible, wasn't it, Ben? Absolutely hilarious. Yeah,
unbelievable. 9 out of 10 this time round.
9 out of 10. I feel like you're over-egging that.
Maybe. Trainers, we're going to be getting back to the action here, of course, at the Pokemon World Championships here in Anaheim 2025. My name's Ben, of course, joined by the wonderful Chazzy.
Yeah, Chazzy, is that what we're calling me now?
Yeah.
Chazzy.
Yeah.
Charlie, Chazzy, whatever you were. Yeah, I mean, within reason, Ben, I mean, you're not even a Benjamin or a Bennett, are you?
I'm
just
not.
Ben?
Just Ben.
Just pure and simple.
Nice and straightforward.
Yeah, nice and straightforward. But how about the action going on out there? Who's having a fantastic showing on day one of the World Championships? Well, we've got quite a few 5-0s already. James Beck, just one game away, of course, from heading straight through to day 2 tomorrow. You have to win at least 6 games here on day 1. Yoshitaka, of course, we just featured on stream there, the only Ho-Oh player at the World Championship. Lewis Markle, who's been having a real breakout season here for the whole of 2025 season. Justin Tangsila 5-0, Victor Medina 5-0. Oh my goodness gracious me, Ben.
Yeah, there's so many good players here, and it's really nice to see the spread overall. But I think there's also some names that maybe we would have expected to see in this graphic that are maybe like on the next page. Players like Marco Silva that took a loss in round 4 and otherwise. So it just shows the caliber of the players here that, even though all of these names we kind of expect to see at this stage of the tournament, we are getting to the business end of the tournament where it's really likely that a lot of our top trainers to watch for the weekend have taken at least one loss on the way through. But that doesn't mean that they're out of the competition, and certainly there'll be a lot of them joining our names up here going into contention for day 2.
Yeah, let's not forget that Luca Cherubelli took a couple of losses on their way to become world champion last year. So as long as these trainers lock in, and sometimes that's what it takes. It takes just a little bit of a kick, right? You know, you lose a game and think, hang on a second, what am I doing? I've just got to put those nerves to one side. Whereas the ones who go undefeated, the pressure they would then pile on themselves not to lose a game could come back to bite them.
Especially with a volatile format like this, it's really hard to always make those calls right every single time. And sometimes you just don't make the right calls in the moment. Sometimes you come up against a matchup that actually maybe you weren't expecting, or maybe someone's just made that slight bit of adaptation to what they're running to be a little bit stronger against what you happen to lock in as well. There's a lot of different factors coming in. What we can say is just how strong all of the trainers on our graphic here are, as well as everybody that has worked so hard to earn their invitation to the World Championships this year.
Absolutely. Well, who knows? Who knows which trainers currently at 3-2 could go ahead and become world champions?
Yeah.
It's names that we haven't featured so far today, but we do know that we'll be having an absolutely fantastic match for you today. But I mean, that's no spoiler, right? I mean, we're at the World Championship, so every single match out there is going to be an absolutely incredible one. And how other matches going on in the venue? Well, we'll be able to show those to you very shortly indeed. And of course, another fantastic thing about the World Championships is that we have everyone from all over the globe going up against each other. For example, this match that we're featuring, Maorada of Japan going up against Giovanni Gio Chisuke from the USA. But of course, we'll talk about that one in just a moment. Let's take a look at some of the other matches going on.
Yeah, the one that immediately sticks out to me is Ko Sukade versus Lewis Markle. And yeah, I really think that Lewis, you said he's got a breakout season. I think that nothing has been more true of Lewis, especially not just in our regional and international championships, but also on the grassroots side of things as well. Lewis has been a consistent name that's been doing well in those tournaments outside of the official scene. And I think that practice, the consistency of playing over and over again and really testing in a competitive environment the teams that you're bringing pays so many dividends in this sort of situation where it just pays off so much, just knowing your team a little bit better than your opponent knows them. You have those niche situations where you just know, I need to protect here, I need to switch here, I need to attack here, because my opponent's not going to do the thing that maybe is so obvious in this spot.
You're so right. There's so much to be said for comfort in this competitive game. But I mean, you know, Yoshitaka running that Ho-Oh is now going up against Justin Tang, of course, a name that's been so prevalent, the winner of the San Antonio Regional Championships this year.
That's Ho-Oh versus Groudon.
Oh, okay, very nice. Yeah, Groudon, Justin back in the Groudon. So far, it's backing him as well at 5-0. And Joji Kaida, Michal Kelch, top 4 at the World Championships last year. The finalist at the World Championships in 2023. Still having a fantastic run out there. But James Beck going against Naoto Kishida there too. Well, wonderful. Now, Mao versus Gio. Neither of these trainers have that big win to their name just yet. Mao actually finished top 4 at the World Championships in 2023, so they're no stranger to going far in these World Championships. And as for Gio, as you were saying, just really breaking out this season with all of these grassroots results, and we actually have another Koraidon mirror. So far be it from just Caloret, Shadow Rider, and Zamazenta out there, trainers. And that reminds me, I really love what our winner of that previous game told us about how Ho-Oh was just so good in Zamazenta. And I think at the beginning of the format of Regulation Set I Milwaukee, we saw some Ho-Oh there, but now that Caloret, Shadow Rider, and Zamazenta have really established itself, Ho-Oh is really coming into its own more. But I mean, for now, these trainers are backing different restrictors.
Yeah, it's like this is the way that you come into the World Championships. You either try to take a swing at the metagame, you try to see what's going to be the most on the field, and try to really play an advantage of that. I think this is nothing more true of our trainers on stage right now, Gio versus Mao here, and both of them trying to take their teams in a different direction.
You can see Gio there just sort of looking around the venue, breathing it in. And I think that's so important. It's only the World Championships once a year, of course, but also just look at that beautiful set, the energy out there, the masses of people there to watch you. So I hope that Gio is just able to remain resolute and stay enjoying the moment. Now, Lunala, Koraidon, Chiyu, Fluttermane, Brute Bonnet, and Ursaluna. And I really want to call out the Meteor Beam of Lunala here with the Power Hood, because it's a move it gets access to, but it's certainly a set that has been the rarer one in Regulation Set I.
I think a lot of Lunala have steered away from it in a way that allows Incineroar to play into Lunala really effectively, but this one just says, no, actually. It takes advantage of the fact that Incineroar are typically Terra Bug, which is also weak to Meteor Beam, so you've almost got a guaranteed attack into that slot. But not only that, you've also got the special attack boost, and Lunala can struggle sometimes to pick up that KO, but with a special attack boost and potentially the Beads of Ruin on this Chi-Yu, it's definitely putting itself on the front foot on that front. What I want to call out here is Gio's really offensively orientated team, where you've got the Brute Bonnet, which is kind of the offensive version of Amoonguss with kind of the same tool sets. You've got that Fluttermane Koraidon, but the Koraidon has a Life Orb here in the close combat that we used to be seeing. The Lunala getting its special attack boost, the Ursaluna going into Trick Room, and to be able to get those headlong rushes with its Guts Flame Orb boost. So a team that can go fast and slow in the same way as someone like Federico Camparosi that won the North American International Championships, but doing it with a little bit more of a spicy set of picks.
We're about to see why this team has been paying such dividends for Gio over the course of Regulation Set I, and I'm so excited about that. Something that's been kept, you know, relatively under wraps in terms of Gio's playstyle here, but now at the World Championships coming to the fore and going up against Mao Harada, Caloret, Shadow Rider, Koraidon, Incineroar, Clefairy, Fluttermane, and Rillaboom. Koraidon with the low kick, which again, this is something that's really been coming out of the woodwork at the World Championships. It's not a move that we've seen really up to now in Regulation Set I on Koraidon.
Yeah, you know, it's the same thing that happened with Iron Hands in Regulation Set G at the World Championships. Low kick just starts to be on every single Koraidon, and I think that's maybe a little bit of an advantage that the Japanese have been working together on this kind of text. I'd love to see the the Clefairy there on Mel's team. It's something that's fallen a little bit out of favour. You saw it quite a lot in Regulation Set G when you only had one restricted that you had to protect for a match. But I think it's equally relevant when you've got two restricted that you want to protect and to make sure that they're dealing all the damage. So maybe that's something that comes into this matchup. Maybe it's a way that Mao has to be able to deal with the offensive pressure that Giovanni is putting on.
What's tricky though is, of course, Clefairy has access to 0 damaging moves here, so Mao has to be very careful that they're not left in a situation where it's just Clefairy on the field. But, you know, EVLI makes it so hard to remove from contention. It's got the Terra Ground, and that seems to be a tech to deal with opposing Miraidon, but of course, there isn't one here, so we'll just have to see what's going to be the Terra option of choice for Mao instead, trying to get the very most out of their team. What I really like on Mao's Fluttermane is the Terra Normal, which of course means that it's going to be taking 0 damage from Moongeist Beam from Lunala here.
Yeah.
So we've got those mind games of will you, won't you, Terra? Will it be super effective? Will it do no damage? Yeah, it's
especially
all kicking off.
Meteor Beam's a move that you can only use once in a row before using your power herb up, and then if you have to use it, if you want to use it again, you have to commit 2 turns for the charging of Meteor Beam, then followed by the Meteor Beam itself. I think a lot of players steer clear of Meteor Beam partly because of the accuracy, where you don't want to necessarily have to charge up, certainly not in a later game situation, and then miss for the trouble.
What's interesting here is, of course, Fluttermane with Moonblast is pressuring the Terra Fire onto the Koraidon, but then, of course, the Meteor Beam would hit it for super effective damage, as opposed to resisted damage, because otherwise we might expect to see a Moonblast on Lunala, but of course it's going to be the Meteor Beam instead. So there's still all of these techs, this rock, paper, scissors effects, that means that Geo could still have the upper hand here.
One other little note here is that Clefairy doesn't have After You, and I think that gives Geo a big opportunity here to maybe try to lean into that Trick Room mode, because the Clefairy could only redirect attacks away, rather than try to make all of his Pokemon in Trick Room go first.
Swiss round 6 at the Pokemon World Championships. Everybody, everything on the line. The entire season has been building towards this. Which of these trainers right here, right now, is going to be stamping their ticket into day 2? Lunala and Chi-Yu for Geo, Clefairy, Koraidon for Mao.
Straight away, that Clefairy actually doing quite a lot of work here, making sure that this Koraidon is going to be able to safely attack. Follow me away from the target of Koraidon will make sure that it's not going to be falling foul of a Meteor Beam if it wants to go for its Terra Fire, nor just a Moongeist Beam that would be doing quite a lot of damage. And I think with the Friend Guard, there's no risk really for Mao that the Lunala's Moongeist, the Chi-Yu's attacks are going to do too much damage to this Koraidon in the early game. So Geo has the opportunity to get some damage, maybe start thinking about setting up that Trick Room, where Mao has to think, where am I going to target and how am I going to make sure that I do it effectively?
Well, if it is going to be the Trick Room, Clefairy has just bought that time for Geo's Lunala. Heat Wave is going to be boosted by the Sun, and it looks like it's going to be missing onto the Koraidon there, but early doors. But is the Chi-Yu going to be going down to a fighting type move? No, just the Flame Charge boosting Koraidon speed here and crucially breaking the Shadow Shield. Moongeist Beam, this is a situation where you'd love to have the Moonblast, of course, threatening big super effective damage, but still, that Koraidon brought down below half.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where actually you've got to target really accurately when you're in front of a Clefairy, because if the Clefairy does exactly what Mao's gone for, go for the Protect, then sometimes you can just whiff a couple of attacks into that Protect if you don't target down the Pokemon that's actually threatening here. And I think the lack of any sort of Sing or offensive move like Icy Wind that some Clefairy have run in the past really does hurt Mao in this situation where Geo kind of gets to attack for free into Koraidon until the Clefairy's not on the field anymore.
It really raises that mind game. I always love seeing Protect on the Follow Me user, and this Pokemon that, you know, its cute looks belies some big strategies. Just going to be the big one-hit KO with Helping Hand into that Chi-Yu, boosted by the Sun. And with that Flare Blitz recoil damage as well, the Chi-Yu is definitely a fish out of water, as Lunala can just get this next Moongeist Beam off. So Mao's Koraidon very much down and out. What with taking such big recoil damage from Flare Blitzes, etc. It's a Pokemon that is here for a good time, not a long time.
I think this is really clever, actually, because the Koraidon going down does set the stage for the Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back, most likely for Mao to bring back in and then start to put some pressure on the board. Geo does have access to Wide Guard on the Lunala, but of course we've seen that mind game play out time after time after time at our international and regional championships, where, well, even if the Wide Guard's there, it doesn't mean it gets clicked every time, and you see quite a lot of Astral Barrages going on.
100% coming in the place of Koraidon. Calyrex Shadow Rider here. This is going to be threatening great damage onto the Lunala over on Giovanni's side of the field. But of course, yeah, you do have this Wide Guard, so the mind game's coming into contention. But as long as Clefairy's there, having the Helping Hand, Calyrex, yeah, if you let that get sweeping, if you let those Grim Nays get ringing around the arena, the Mao could well be stamping their ticket through to our next round undefeated.
It's really important as well that Geo didn't go for the Terra onto the Chi Yu on that turn as well, really gives this Calyrex a lot more problems in that Psychic doesn't necessarily knock out the Koraidon here. Potential with a helping hand, and certainly if that Koraidon isn't trained as much in its defenses because it's carrying the Life Orb, it may be a situation where the Calyrex can just sort of target down into it freely, but certainly when it's got the Terra Fire at its disposal and you know, the ability to the Clefairy has the ability to redirect attacks, is not so safe this turn.
Terra Fire onto the Koraidon again. Unspeakable amount of damage coming out from that Pokemon now, boosted by the Sun with the Life Orb to boost. Calyrex doesn't like the look of that one bit, at least the Friend Guard, keeping that Pokemon safe on future turns. Now Clefairy also going for the Protect here, so Mao just has the opportunity to lock in. And of course, if Geo's-Leona had indeed gone for the Meteor Beam, then it would have gone for naught.
This is a dangerous thing to do in front of a Pokemon that can just click the Trick Room, but he gets it right. Mao making that call there. It is the Meteor Beam coming out from the Lunala.
And it's not going to be doing a thing. This means on future turns, Meteor Beam would take 2 turns to act, and that's why we tend to only see it once in any given battle of competitive Pokemon. But the one thing that you haven't lost here is the special attack boost on your Lunala. It's risen from an Alola, and let's hope it's not going to be eclipsed.
The advantage here for Mao is that the Terra Dark on the Calyrex actually really does come into its own here. Again, if the Helping Hand Psychic is able to knock out this Koraidon, a lot of Lunala that, as we were talking about before, that have Moonblast, they really like it in these sort of positions because, well, you're having a trouble if you do, or having trouble if you don't with the Terra Dark on Calyrex. You're either getting hit by 4 times super effective on the Moongeist Beam, or you're getting hit for super effective on the Moonblast. And the fact that that isn't a problem actually for Mao is a really nice way that this game unfolds.
Fortunately, though, there is no Moonblast on the Lunala over on Geo's side of the field, so it's wonderful that this Calyrex has that opportunity, that little bit of wiggle room, that little bit of flexibility now to go for this Terra Dark. But in the incoming fighting time, that'll be huge. Right, the big Helping Hand boosted Astral Barrage potentially. Koraidon's going to be safe from it. Just how much damage will Lunala be taking here? Oh my goodness me, no, it was the Psychic, in fact, into Geo's Koraidon here. Now we turn our attention over to Lunala, the Moongeist Beam. Oh dear, with the Friend Guard, but with the Terra Dark onto the Calyrex Shadow Rider, in fact targeted into the Clefairy here. Wow, and you can see that the special attack boost from the Meteor Beam really paid dividends.
You've got to be careful here as well if you're Geo, if it's whether or not you want to play defensively and switch in a Pokemon to take that Psychic while you knock out the Clefairy, and then that sort of opens the door for your Lunala to actually do something here. I'm kind of surprised that Geo hasn't actually gone for the Trick Room in this scenario, tried to make Koraidon that little bit more of a threat in this situation, being naturally slower than the Calyrex on Mao's side.
Right.
But Mao is maintaining their lead at the moment, and I really do want to see whether or not that mind game gets called by either of our players, whether we actually just see an Astral Barrage to knock out the Lunala in this spot.
Yeah, this is tricky, of course, because, yeah, you have the Fluttermane in the back. It's got Focus Sash. That means it's going to be able to take at least 1 attack here, but it will be super effective damage if indeed it's the Astral Barrage into that slot. Clefairy is just going to continue to dish out those Helping Hands. There's the Astral Barrage. Oh my goodness, the Lunala has not been protected. That moon has set. Now Fluttermane just brought down to the 1 HP. Koraidon lurking in the back will be emerging from the Velodrome. Gonna be the Sun expiring soon, and Giovanni just down to their final 2 Pokemon.
It's such a call to make, but it makes so much sense because the Trick Room is a threat from the Lunala, especially with the Sun leaving the field as well. I think this is a really good timing for Koraidon to switch out and then switch back in to reset it. That keeps the speed advantage in Geo's favor, but unfortunately for Geo, the Wide Guard is no longer an option for him, and the Follow Me will stop the Fluttermane from being able to target with a Moonblast into that Calyrex on this turn. But of course, if you go for a Moonblast to try to knock out the Clefairy so you can knock out the Calyrex with a move from Koraidon, well then you're not Icy Winding and the Calyrex is still going first.
Right. It's all about the speed here, the need for speed that Mao has over on their side, and then that ever-present question of is Clefairy going to go for Protect or not? Mind games, mind games, mind games, and Protects. As Mao's Calyrex Shadow Rider won't be taking any damage this turn, and Clefairy too, so the Sun being stalled out for a turn that's just been reset.
Yeah. this is like giving an opportunity for the Sun leaving the field actually to be a potential win condition for Mao. I think it takes a really good trainer to identify those spots where it looks like you're already so far in the driving seat that you're probably not going to have that problem come up. But actually, you might as well just increase the chances. We saw that in the last round where you've just got to take your time on those win conditions and just make sure that you're getting all the way. And while we're here, Charlie, worth reminding everybody at home, this is Swiss round 6. Whoever wins this game, both of them are 5-0. Whoever wins this game is locking their position in day 2 here at the World Championships.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in game 1, however, so we have at least one more game to go. It's just whether Geo's able to eke out the advantage. I mean, Mao has the luxury of an unrevealed 4th Pokemon in the back thus far, and they're going to be wanting to keep their cards close to their chest, not revealing that if at all possible to be able to catch Geo out potentially in the next game. Moonblast, is this going to be enough to deal the KO? It certainly will. That Clefairy is going all the way back to Mount Moon. Speaking of Mount Moon, Lunala, unfortunately that's down and out as well. Here's the Flare Blitz. It's boosted by the Sun. It's got that Life Orb into the Terra Dark Calyrex Shadow Rider. That's going to be enough for the KO. Geo looking mighty pleased about that. And now the tables have turned. Now it's brought down to their final Pokemon.
Well, there's been no Icy Wind on that Calyrex, and it looks like this is one of those Calyrex that sacrificed a little bit of speed on the way to the World Championships. Maybe it's been playing a little bit too much in regulation.
It's a long old ride to Anaheim, Ben.
It's a very long ride from Japan over there, and Gio's had a little bit of a shorter ride, so maybe a little bit more gas in the tank there for the Koraidon.
100%. That Bicycle Beast now facing down this Fluttermane. Really thanking their lucky stars that Koraidon's gone for the Terrafy here. Of course, now taking resistant damage from Fluttermane. Coming in for Mao, it is threatening the Moonblast. Has Shadow Ball as well, though, so can deal some neutral damage in the situation. But you do have to break through the Focus Sash on Mao's side of the field, so it's still very close.
Was it like this is the potential speed tie between these Fluttermanes? If Mao's goes first, then Mao's in a great position because you can Icy Wind to knock out the Fluttermane, assuming that hits that slot, and then do that little bit more damage to the Koraidon. And the Koraidon doesn't have to do recoil damage to itself with Flare Blitz to be able to put this Fluttermane down to its Focus Sash. And I think arguably the play to make for Geo is to try to increase the speed. Mao does though get the speed advantage.
Is going to be connecting with Icy Wind over on Mao's side. That's going to be Fluttermane down, and of course Koraidon has to get through a Focus Sash as well, so does it have enough gas in that attack you mentioned, Ben, to be able to secure the KO next turn? Now here's the Flame Charge with the speed boost. It's boosted by the Sun, but there comes that Focus Sash that has been so crucial ever since its introduction to the competitive Pokemon video game circuit.
With the Life Orb chip here, Charlie, this is really close. I mean, the fact that it's the Life Orb rather than the Clear Amulet makes a big difference as well, because this Koraidon doesn't have a chance of being able to move first. It got its speed dropped, it brought it back up with the Flame Charge, and now it's not boosted like the Fluttermane is in its speed.
Here comes the Shadow Ball. Is this going to be enough for the Koraidon to hang on? No, it's not. That's going to be Koraidon down. Giovanni brought it oh so close, but no, the victory is going to go over to our top 4 at Worlds 2023, Mao Harada, who is 1 game away from progressing through to day 2 with a completely clean record.
That was so close, but what a great set of information for Geo coming into this game too. Yeah, okay, Geo didn't manage to secure the win there as a little bit of a coin flip away from being able to do so, and that's to speak to how close this match is overall between these two trainers. But just knowing that your Koraidon is faster than the Calyrex Shadow Rider on Mao's side of the field makes so much of a difference coming into game 2. You don't need that Fluttermane to be there to use the Icy Winds and to really put pressure on it that way, and you can play that a little bit more aggressively with it. Try to knock out the Clefairy a little bit earlier. We saw it got knocked out in this game, but it was a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, wow, okay, so now, of course, Mao also has access to that information. It's just about how Geo uses that to their advantage, trying to catch Mao off guard, perhaps. Well, we're still on stage with Mao and Geo. We are 1 game away from potentially Mao going through today too, or maybe Gio can win this next one and then take us to a game 3. This team that Gio has been backing all through regulation set iron. Ben, how do you think Gio can use that team to their advantage to be able to get the one-up over Mal?
See, I like the way that Gio was playing in game 1, where it was trying to match the speeds and to play a little bit more aggressively, and certainly now knowing that the Calyrex Shadow Rider is a little bit slower, where the Koraidon is a little bit faster, it does make sense now why Gio was probably favouring that strategy, maybe thinking of following a lot of the Japanese players and having a little bit of inside information to what they've been running in their local tours. But I think really I'd like to see a little bit more trick room from Gio. I think there's a big old Ursaluna in the back there that we didn't see, well, Ursaluna hits pretty hard in this matchup.
Old is definitely the way to describe the Pokemon from Hisui, Sinnoh's ancient past, but it's going to be a switch up here for Gio, my goodness. With the Brute Bonnet joining the fray, if there's one way around a difficult matchup or a game you don't know how to approach, it certainly is that Spore. Shutting down slots with Spore and Sleep, meaning that they're unable to act. The defense boost on the Brute Bonnet as well could really pay dividends here, of course, in the face of this physical attacking Koraidon. The Terra type being water, so it can resist that fire.
Yeah, water's the big deal here, but also the big deal is the fact that that Fluttermane doesn't have Taunt on the other side, on Mal's side. Mal's just going on the offensive with their moves and going for the speed control. So this is a real opportunity for Gio to get ahead in this early game, get a Spore into the right target, and try to play that little bit more defensively. So you open up the window, so you open up the door to be able to play aggressively in the mid-game.
All these Pokemon from the past colliding in the present, but who will be our future world champion? Time will tell as our fantastic trainers lock in their moves. Gio has to win this to be able to stay in contention for getting through to day 2 with 0 losses. Now, Brute Bonnet has indeed gone for its Terra Water. This means that it won't be taking super effective damage from fire, or indeed the fairy-type moves that Mal's Fluttermane has access to. Fluttermane, though, is instead just going to be protecting. Of course, Gio's Koraidon is so threatened by that Fluttermane here as well. But Koraidon for Mal also protecting. This is something we've seen Mal do time and time again. Just going for the double protect, scouting out for what their opponent's locking into. And, you know, you don't want to take any chances if you can avoid them. Koraidon aiming to get its Spood a little bit boosted there with a Flame Charge, and the Spore aiming for the Koraidon.
You know, I thought that could have been a side Flame Charge into the Brute Bonnet there. That would have been such a cool play. Goes to be able to resisting that hit with a defense boost from Photosynthesis, not take really any damage whatsoever. But it is a little bit of a risk, especially if the Brute Bonnet Terra was quite telegraphed in that situation where you really just want to have those supportive options available. Mal doing well to see how Gio's thinking in this turn, but also opening the door to the fact that, well, both of their Pokemon just protected, so they can't necessarily protect again.
Something the Great is coming in. It's going to be Incineroar the Great. Who'd have thunk it, traders? Incineroar the Great. It's not like it's won everything ever since its introduction into this competitive format we have here, but the safety goggles, of course, means that it's going to not be being put to sleep by the Spore. That Brute Bonnet is threatening down. Rillaboom has been joining the fray now, setting up that grassy terrain, getting the grass super effective moves online into the Brute Bonnet. Koraidon this time, it's its turn to go for its protect.
Yeah, it's like both trainers kind of see that there's a switch-up going to be happening, and Mal really going quite deep into that, thinking that maybe Trick Room was a thing that actually Gio could really go for, and saying, well, if they're going to be going for Trick Room, then double Fake Out seems like a good thing to have at your disposal. Certainly even better seeing that the Brute Bonnet had actually gone for its Terra Water in this spot, and Rillaboom gets the opportunity to hit that now for super effective, where, okay, U-turn would be 4 times super effective, but it's not the same type of attack bonus. It's not the strongest move out there.
Yeah, it's fantastic that Mal has brought both the Incineroar and the Rillaboom this game, because they're both immune to that Spore. So just staying one step ahead of Gio here, saying, well, you know, this could be an adaptation you bring to game 2, but it's not one that I'm going to fall foul of. Gio bringing that time right back down to the wire, as Chi-Yu will be swimming right out of its shrine in Paldea onto the World Championship stage here in Anaheim, California, reducing the special defenses of everything around it. Koraidon not acting this turn, the Fake Out making it flinch. Now we turn our attention over to the Rillaboom. It was baited into that Woodhammer into the Brute Bonnet slot. Would have been super effective. That was multiple sound effects there, Ben. If you could consider an alternate career, then that one is right there for you. Foley Master Ben, a little bit of recovery all around on the field.
And getting the fake out onto that Koraidon really makes a difference here, because both of the Pokemon on Mal's side are really struggling to be able to survive attacks from that Koraidon. Close combat, even with an Intimidate, but with the Life Orb, still usually gets the knockout onto Incineroar, and Rillaboom exactly the same, but both of these Pokemon can tear her out, so it's a really difficult scenario to choose where for Mal that he's going to play defensively in this spot, especially now that Chi-Yu has entered the field and you get that extra little bit of damage from Heat Wave.
Heat Wave, but it can also miss, of course. Mal's Rillaboom really under the thumb here, but you want to keep around the Pokemon that are immune to Spore for as long as you possibly can. Incineroar, for potentially that reason, now switching, because it's so threatened by the fighting type moves that Koraidon can bring right from the past into the present. Now Mal's own Koraidon going to be joining the fray here instead. Clear Amulet meets Life Orb, but now let's meet a Terra.
Yeah, interested to see which one this is. It's Rillaboom going for his Terra Water, so yeah, I think a really good defensive play here, where Geo's already committed their Terra, but Rillaboom gets to also play on the defensive. The grass type's actually feeling a little bit wet in this scenario, even in the sun.
The defensive drums, that's going to be a dodge over onto the Koraidon. Could be nice to have fished for a burn in that situation, but no,
and the close combat as well.
The close combat not going to be enough to secure the KO. Mao is certainly looking pleased about that one, and now Geo's Koraidon has softened itself up, not only from the recoil damage, but from that defense drop too. Woodhammer into Chi-Yu, there it is again, thank you so much, Ben, and Chi-Yu is down as well. It just goes to show, not very effective sometimes with a grassy terrain boosted Woodhammer. Can certainly look that way, but with the recoil damage, that's going to be the Terra option down for Mal, that's going to be the Rillaboom down for Mal, the solo has ended, the gig is over too. Take that drum kit back to your car, hop in your cars and head home, as now Fluttermane with its Focus Sash still intact in the back, and you've got the Brute Bonnet that has gone for his Terra Water.
I think, again, in the same way in Game 1, the knockout on the Chi-Yu quite early in the match there really does open the door for the Calyrex on Mal's side to really hit into its stride here. But the Brute Bonnet does have Sucker Punch this time round, and yeah, okay, that's not going to be hitting for super effective if the Calyrex does go for its terrestrialization, but if it does, then that means that the Koraidon isn't, and maybe that opens a few windows for Geo to take advantage of as well.
Right, here it is, that shiny Brute Bonnet, and now the response from Mao going to be their Fluttermane joining the field too, which also has its Focus Sash intact. Focus Sash that paid so many dividends in that Game 1.
Yeah, but now we're back to basically the same situation that we had in Turn 1. We've gone around the houses and come back to this position where the Terra Water Brute Bonnet is actually looking really, really nice. And I think Geo getting the KO on that Rillaboom actually might have been one of the key things on his path to taking this Game 2 back from Mal, taking us to a Game 3. Because the Spore is ever more threatening in this spot when there isn't a big Grass-type Pokemon that's ready to put the hammer down.
Well, exactly. The hammer is down and out. But Brute Bonnet can still threaten some, you know, breaking the Focus Sash onto the Fluttermane would be really wonderful in this situation. It's on that Bullet Seed, of course, just has the Speed Bomb, so you can't deal with it in one hit. As Koraidon now just going to be scaling out, of course, again, it's so weak to that double super effective fairy damage. Was going to be the Shadow Ball into that slot instead. The Flare Blitz also doubled up into the Koraidon. Geo giving a little nod there. Now, what mischief has Brute Bonnet got up to here? Just the Spore. Fluttermane taking that snooze on the field, and this could well be how Geo now takes us through to a Game 3.
Yeah, no real reason not to play that completely safe there for Geo, because the Terra Water Brute Bonnet is in such a good position. You've got to respect Mal for taking the taking that read and saying, well, okay, this is such an obvious play that maybe Geo doesn't go for it in this scenario, and trying to take advantage of that, but certainly not coming through. And I think with a Spore onto the Fluttermane now, it's really down to Geo to try and take advantage of that Pokemon being asleep. Now, Fluttermane has gone to sleep and hasn't been able to get its mandatory turn of sleep down because the Brute Bonnet is so slow in the same way that Amoonguss does, and so this Fluttermane now will not be able to attack. The Brute Bonnet's still not in any threat of being KO'd, even though it doesn't have its defense boost from the Protosynthesis anymore. So a Spore into the Koraidon is looking pretty nice still.
Yeah, the Spore Vortex that makes Mao pivot around, rotate those doors, just trying to not get their Pokemon put to sleep. You could call it the Sportex, but
the
slow
kick
kick into the Fluttermane on Geo's side. Really good call from Geo there, and it seems like Geo has now successfully got into Mao's head, just predicting their play. You now have 2 sleeping Pokemon over on Mao's side of the field, thanks to that Sportex, and it's high time now for Geo to just go on the offensive, try to start sweeping through.
Right, because the Brute Bonnet has Sucker Punch, so it and Mao's Fluttermane only has offensive moves other than Protect. So while you're asleep, you can still go for Protect over and over again, and it doesn't reduce your chances of being able to succeed in that. That would block the Sucker Punch, but if you're just carrying on protecting, then you're not actually doing any damage, and so yeah, it's a really tough spot to be in for Mao here, especially knowing that the Incineroar is in the back. At least Mao does have a switch in there, but then you're not burning through those sleep turns, and so yeah, again, it's really tough when both your Pokemon on the field are asleep and they just can't get anything done.
Koraidon is also threatened by the Fairy-type moves that Geo's Fluttermane can go for here. Incineroar's going to be joining the fray instead. As long as Mao can pivot that around, it's just going to be so much less plain sailing for Geo here. Fluttermane will wake up here for Mao, and it's able to get off that Protect. So, didn't get too lucky there with the sleep turns over on Mao's side of the field. From Geo's perspective, the Sucker Punch just scaling out here in place of no damaging move, of course, into the Protect, or indeed the switch in from the Incineroar. Shadow Ball would have been super effective, but Mao's Fluttermane taking no damage.
Yeah, especially since the Fluttermane can't actually go for, or neither Fluttermane can go for a Terastallization in this spot. They can certainly exchange Shadow Balls, and maybe this is one of those turns where instead of exchanging a Shadow Ball, you go for the Icy Wind to break the Focus Sash, but if both of them do that, we end up in exactly the same position that we were in before, and certainly with the Koraidon in the back as well. Could actually lead to a Fluttermane getting a special attack Photosynthesis boost instead of a speed one.
Yeah, that'll be a fascinating interaction. It's going to be Mao's Koraidon joining the field now, switching that one back in. But it's still sleeping, of course. There's no damage threatened down, but that it can still threaten the Orichalcum Pulse on the field and give the Photosynthesis boost to both the Fluttermane and the Brute Bonnet here. Now, Koraidon's boosted up, but can it do anything with it? The Shadow Ball into that slot is guaranteed damage, of course. It could have been a Moonblast just to remove it from contention immediately. Flare Blitz now into the Fluttermane. Unless there's a burn here, if Fluttermane is hanging on the field, the Focus Sash activation, do we have that status condition off that recall damage? No, it looks like not. Spore just attempted into that Koraidon slot. It's, you know, Geo looked like they were having the advantage here, but Mao is doing everything they can just to keep turning it around.
So unfortunately for Geo there, putting something to sleep that's already asleep does not extend the sleep turns in the way that you wanted to. Koraidon still gets to wake up at the same time it would have otherwise. But again, the Moonblast here, guaranteed damage again into that Koraidon. Never took a guaranteed turn of sleep, so that's going to be going down this turn.
From sleeping to KO, double super effective damage. Now Geo well and truly has the Pokemon advantage. I speak just as now Geo's third Pokemon is knocked out, so down to the final two. So it's going to be Koraidon, Brute Bonnet versus the Fluttermane and the Incineroar over on Mao's side of the field. Brute Bonnet was really putting in work here. The Seed Bomb just, you know, get some guaranteed damage off. Why not? Of course, it could have been a Fluttermane switch in there too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And so Koraidon rejoining the fray. Brute Bonnet, such a masterful switch up for Geo here. It'd be fascinating to see if we do head to a game 3, if they're going to be leaning on that one once more. But Fluttermane for Mao crucially does still have its Focus Sash intact.
But what it can't do is attack 2 Pokemon at the same time with its damage-dealing moves. Yes, there is the Icy Wind potential there, but Brute Bonnet has a way to counteract that with a Rage Powder, so the Moonblast gets redirected, the Shadow Ball gets redirected away from the Koraidon. Koraidon gets to attack into the Incineroar whenever it really likes to in this scenario, and a Flame Charge would certainly knock the Fluttermane down to its Focus Sash. So yeah, a really good position, a really strong position for Geo to be in. Now let's not forget as well, the Sucker Punch after the Fluttermane is at its Focus Sash would stop this Fluttermane from attacking at all. So yeah, only a few turns away I think from Geo being able to lock up this game 2, takes us to a game 3.
Let's see if Mao can switch things around and get something done here with a helping paw from the Incineroar. What will Fluttermane be going for as it's going to be redirected into the Brute Bonnet on Geo's side of the field? Going to be the Moonblast. How much damage will that do? Brood Bonnet brought down to about a third, but the berry, fascinating to see a citrus berry in this format because, of course, there's so much Calyrex riding around unnerved, meaning that you're unable to eat those berries, but the super effective close combat now into Mao's Incineroar. Fluttermane has a mountain to climb here, and as it stares down its fellow Pokemon from the past, let's see if it's going to write its own future.
I wonder if there's a scenario where actually Geo kind of wants to wait out this sun just that little bit longer to stop that photosynthesis boost, boosting up the speed of the Fluttermane and maybe being able to outspeed it with the Koraidon. But Citrus Berry here doing so much work, and unless the Fluttermane gets a critical hit, it's likely that the Fluttermane is going to be able to it's going to be targeted down by the Koraidon, take it down to its Focus Sash. If Koraidon does that with a Flame Charge as well, which is the most likely thing, then after the sun gets removed from the field, then the Koraidon always outspeeds the Fluttermane. There's no chance of any speed ties going on here.
Brood Bonnet, definitely the MVP in this game. It was putting things to sleep, and now it's becoming the center of attention. That Moonblast, there's no critical hit to speak of there. That will be the Flame Charge. That will be the Fluttermane brought down to its Sash. That will be the boost to the speed of the Koraidon. Geo leaving nothing to chance as far as possible here, just making sure that they are stamping their ticket into a third game and trying to turn the tables against Mount Harada.
And now Geo gets to do the perfect pin here overall, is to go for a Sucker Punch and then to go for any sort of attack onto the Fluttermane. If you keep on protecting, then maybe you get a few turns out of it, but yeah, Geo in a perfect spot to take this game, and that's why Mao forfeited that turn to take us to a game 3. So adaptations from both of our players here coming into game 2, and it does make me wonder what the game 3 is going to look like. But let's take a little bit of a recap here of the all of these wood hammers coming down and taking the knockout onto that Chi Yu.
Sound effect again, Ben? Oh wow, that was a good one. Excellent, trainers. Let us know what you think of that one using the hashtag Pokemon Worlds. Brood Bonnet was so pivotal in that game, and the question is, of course, does Mao call that? Do they? I mean, they already brought the adaptation of the Incineroar and the Rillaboom.
Yeah, right.
To be able to block those spores, but it was so useful for Geo there. The thing is, you kind of have to go for your Terra Water onto the Brood Bonnet because there's so much firepower being threatened.
Yeah, literally.
Koraidon weak to the Moonblast, of course, so there are still so many cards to shuffle.
But I think that's what Geo identified so well in that game too, right? Where there was a chance for close combat to go into the Incineroar, but actually Geo declined that free damage onto that slot and said, well, actually, no. I need to knock out this Grass-type Pokemon so that my Brood Bonnet can play so confidently into the end game. And I think that just that extra little bit of damage of the close combat really did seal the game for Geo. Maybe took a few turns to get to that end game state, but Geo did so well in finding that position early.
What I really like from Mao in that game is how they left the Clefairy at home, actually.
Yeah.
It's another indication that they were predicting the Brood Bonnet switch up from Geo there, because once Clefairy's asleep, yeah, of course, you've got the Frame Guard active, but again, that is a Pokemon that's threatening no damaging moves, and if it had been brought to that previous game, I feel like that would have been an even swifter victory for Geo.
But also leaving the Calyrex at home as well. I mean, that's not something that most of our trainers really want to be doing, but let's get into it, Charlie. Game 3, Swiss Round 6 here in Anaheim, California.
Which of Mao Harada and Geo Siski will be progressing through to day 2 with a completely clean record of 6 wins and 0 losses? It all comes down to this game. And thank you, Geo, for providing the Paldea Elite 4 music, because it couldn't be more perfect for the high stakes that these trainers are providing. So Koraidon faces down Lunala, Fluttermane faces down Chi Yu.
You see, like Lunala actually sits itself into a quite nice spot here where it's putting on a lot of pressure, and it doesn't necessarily worry about taking too many, getting too many knockouts taken against it, especially if Geo wants to commit the early Terra Water onto that Lunala. Not Terra that we see too often in this regulation set, but actually working out really, really well. And I think Geo identifying in his team building process that actually Lunala really doesn't like playing into these mirrors. I've got to have the Terra Water to be able to play into those confidently, rather than to play this sort of mirror match that doesn't go so well for me all the time.
The Moonblast, there's no special attack drop there. Heat Wave connecting into Mao's side of the field. The Flare Blitz is going to be big damage, but it's also going to deal big recoil damage right back to Mao's Koraidon. Chiyu is already down and out. Already, Mao has the advantage in terms of Pokemon numbers. The Moonguy's Beam, though, super effective onto Mao's Fluttermane. Lovely to break this Focus Sash early that was such a thorn into Geo's side in that previous game, and now secure the KO with the Moonguy's Beam. So we've traded a Pokemon apiece. Fluttermane and Chiyu, we often see them side by side on the field, but this time around, they were facing each other down. These trainers mean business.
I think this actually really does favour Geo more than it does Mao, because now the Fluttermane on Mao's side of the field gets taken out. We've seen already in this matchup how important Fluttermane is to the end game. Well, if you knock it out on turn 1, you don't have to worry about it in an end game scenario. You can also use your own Fluttermane to your advantage here. Calyrex and Koraidon entering the field at the same time, I think, really does make you question whether or not the Koraidon outspeeding the Calyrex in game 1 was just that one-time advantage, or if this is definitely the Koraidon having the advantage here.
All 4 restricted on the field now. Again, this is so classic for game 3. These trainers saying, taking the gloves off, just trying to get the jump on their opponents.
Definitely. I mean, that's the thing with these sort of situations where if you have the slower restricted Pokemon, you can really get into trouble quite quickly. But the Lunala has a tool up its sleeve that it's been using all season long in that wide guard to make that situation just that little bit easier to deal with and try to utilize, I think, for Geo certainly, the very powerful Moonguy's Beam that he has access to.
Okay, so Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be riding all the way back to Galar and joining us on the field instead.
Battery 70%.
Okay, so Mao did bring it this game.
Tiếp tục. Mao.
Onto the Koraidon.
Mao Harada đúng không?
Trainers is becoming Terrifier. It's all the more boosted to its firepower now with the sun blazing down. It's going to be the Koraidon on Geo's side of the field. The Flare Blitz massive into the Clefairy here. Just how much damage is it going to take? Oh, it's just enough for the big one-hit KO. My goodness gracious me. The Eviolite not coming into contention there at all.
Chị có thấy vậy?
The booster defenses of a Pokemon that can still evolve. And Mao is brought down to just their final 2 Pokemon.
Mao ở đây là Mao Harada chứ không phải là L Mao.
Removing Geo's Koraidon. The low kick. Geo head in hand, but down but not out.
Because there could be another knockout yet to come. All of the restricted on the field at the start of the turn.
Moonguy's Beam.
Energy raining down from the sky into Mao.
Không chết.
But no, it will be hanging on here. But the Fluttermane so lovely to have in the back.
Như vậy là bên Giovanni còn lại một con cuối là Fluttermane.
With that processing boost, but also the wide guard that it has access to, it's going to make this Calyrex just a lot easier for Geo to be able to deal with in this end game. But one thing that Mao's done really well is knock out the Koraidon that turn, which we did see outspeeding the Calyrex. So there's no risk of that same issue happening yet again. What I'm wondering about is whether Icy Wind is enough to pick up the KO on this Koraidon.
Moonguy's Beam vào con Koraidon.
Things up here and take a positive turn here for Mao in this end game. One thing to note is that actually Mao has yet to commit their Terra option on their side of the field, and so going for a Terra Dark here on the Calyrex would make you much better into the Lunala, but if you do that, then maybe your Koraidon gets knocked out by a super effective Icy Wind instead.
Certainly not the first wide guard mind game that we're going to be seeing at the World Championships, trainers. It has been so prevalent in regulation set I. Now Koraidon going for his Terrifier for Mao. This means, of course, it's not going to damage from Geo's Fluttermane with a roar of be the Astral Barrage that Mao's Calyrex locked into. Let us find out. Moonblast into the Calyrex, down to about 50%. Just a Psychic in fact now into Geo's Fluttermane, brought down to 24 hit points. That Lifeall damage is going to keep racking up as well. The Flame Charge boosting the speed. That's going to be Fluttermane down. Critical hit not mattering there in the slightest, and all of a sudden This Lunala cannot go for wide guard and attack at the same time. It's having too much asked of it.
What a call to make in this scenario, and especially as well because the Koraidon getting that speed boost, make sure it absolutely goes before the Calyrex here. That'll knock out its Shadow Shield, so the Astral Barrage will definitely pick up a KO. If it wasn't going to take a KO, regardless, being an Astral Barrage single target into a Lunala that has no ability to go for its Terra option.
The wide guard once more, but here is that all-important flame charge to break the Shadow Shield now. Lunala in the sun, you can see the dividends it pays. Of course, Shadow Shield meaning it's taking reduced damage from attacks when it's at full HP. Was the attempted Astral Barrage here, but at some point, if Geo wants to win this game, they're going to have to start attacking, but just immediately locking in another wide guard, in fact.
Yeah, it's like really clever as well for Mao to go on the offensive in the way that he does. I mean, the temptation here is to go for a Flare Blitz, but actually going for a Flame Charge over and over again means that the allowed to attack over and over again without taking that
Mao win. Mao 6-0 rồi.
It's the fact that the two Pokemon are on the field for Mao that's important here, more than how long it takes to do the requisite damage.
Oh dearie me, yeah, this Lunala has certainly been caught out of position now. There's not much Geo can do, but just continuing to lock in these wide guards. Just, you know, again, prolong your time in the spotlight, on the stage. It's only the World Championships once a year, trainers. Flare Blitz now, this is going to be enough. That's going to be Mao Harada, your top 4 at Worlds 2023, going through to day 2.
Big congratulations there for Mao. I'm so excited to see how far he can make it now that he's guaranteed his spot into day 2 here. And commiserations to Geo on not making it this round, but of course there's still 2 more rounds to go for Geo where he can lock in that day 2.
And could well happen given the season that Geo's been having and the fantastic grassroots results they've been racking up for themselves. And this team that is really pretty unique, but it's been working so well for Geo, and we were saying it before the match, Ben, it's all about those comfort picks, just knowing that you're in the right position at the right time. Playing so masterfully there too, making it such a closely contested game. Mao caught on the back foot, and I was really surprised not to see the Brute Bonnet coming into play, but at the same time, again, game 3, both trainers really stepping on the gas. They were really going all in on the offense, and maybe Brute Bonnet therefore would have been caught out of position.
I feel like you've got to give Geo a lot of credit there for getting ahead in the early game and knocking out that Flutter turn 1, but I think the way that Mao was able to position that end game and actually play pretty confidently in the final few turns there, where an Icy Wind and an attack could have been a very different scenario, an attack into the Koraidon and then so the
keeping you guess feel that again, yeah,
up, and especially where there's a lot of mirrors in the format, this how those sort of lock up this game to take it
as cheap.
Maintain.
No, Kurobado Zamazenta ni totemo. I believe this is your first. Might be.
Oh, it's on. Okay, you ready for this? I'll show first as a sign of.
Boom! I got the Obama cell. I think I have the type advantage here.
The Lunala's Moon Guys.
Flutter main and Rillaboom. Mao Harada, Calyrex Shadow Rider. But now, at the World Championships coming to the fore, going up against Mao Harada, Calyrex Shadow Rider, Koraidon, Incineroar, Clefairy, Fluttermane, and Rillaboom. Koraidon with the low kick, which again, this is something that's really been coming out of the woodwork at the World Championships. It's not a move that we've seen really up to now in Regulation Set I on Koraidon.
Yeah, you know, it's the same thing that happened with Iron Hands in Regulation Set G at the World Championships. Low kick just starts to be on every single Koraidon, and I think that's maybe a little bit of an advantage that the Japanese have been working together on this kind of text. I'd love to see the Clefairy there on Mao's team. It's something that's fallen a little bit out of favour. You saw it quite a lot in Regulation Set G when you only had one restricted that you had to protect for a match. But I think it's equally relevant when you've got 2 restricteds that you want to protect and to make sure that they're dealing all the damage. So maybe that's something that comes into this matchup. Maybe it's a way that Mao has to be able to deal with the offensive pressure that Giovanni is putting on.
What's tricky though is, of course, Clefairy has access to 0 damaging moves here, so
yeah,
Mao has to be very careful that they're not left in a situation where it's just Clefairy on the field. But, you know, EVLI makes it so hard to remove from contention. It's got the Terra Ground, and that seems to be a tech but of course, there isn't one here, so we'll just have to see what's going to be the Terra option of choice for Mao instead, trying to get the very most out of their team. What I really like on Mao's Fluttermane is the Terra Normal. which of course means that it's going to be taking 0 damage from Moondice Beam from Lunala here.
Yeah.
So we've got those mind games of will you, won't you, Terra? Will it be super effective? Will it do no damage? Yeah, it's
especially
all
Meteor Beam's a move that you can only use once in a row before using your power herb up, and then if you have to use it, if you want to use it again, you have to commit 2 turns for the charging of Meteor Beam, then followed by the Meteor Beam itself. I think a lot of players steer clear of Meteor Beam partly because of the accuracy. That way, you don't want to necessarily.
Again, game 3, both trainers.
Vai fazer, eu acho que
but the Groudon now will wake up. We've had that 3 guaranteed sleep.
Cái này là sáng nay luôn. Chúng ta đến với trận đấu của Street Round 7 là trận giữa Victor đến từ Tây Ban Nha và Justin Tăng đến từ Mỹ. Bên lề ngoài lề thì thanh niên Justin này cũng là 1/4 gốc Việt.
I'm very excited to see them play. I'm a little disappointed to see them play against each other. We're love to see both of them make it deep into this tournament. But you see Victor's team here first. Kind of what we've come to expect largely from this Shadow Rider Calyrex Zamazenta team. One thing to keep in mind is the Smeargle. I've seen a number of top players, including Japan's national champion, opting to go away from the deck in that Smeargle. A really fun move to watch, instead going for a fully support-oriented, maybe I guess defensive support-oriented Pokemon, maybe with the Wide Guard kind of taking that spot up. Having it when 2 different Pokemon going to be perhaps a bit of a problem for that Ground on the other side. You know, Precipice Blades never seems to hit anyway, but definitely not going to hit through Wide Guard.
Yeah, and when you look at the Groudon on the opposite side, you think you've got double Wide Guard, so you've got a lot of options, even if you lead with the Smeargle and that support line goes down. You've still got the Zamazenta to come in and kind of give you that additional protection as well. Some interesting Terastallization choices there for Victor, but he is one of those players I think I'm more familiar watching Victor quite frequently over in Europe, and he's been so close to getting that major title a lot of times earlier this season, LATAM finals. Didn't quite get over the line. Performed very well consistently at many regionals as well this season, but could this be the year? But before that, we need to get into Justin's team, running that Ice Rider Calyrex and Groudon combination that we haven't commonly seen so much of this season.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it, where it's like kind of one of those things that seems like it should have worked better in this format, but it has, with Groudon, a historically really effective Pokemon in these GS Cup formats. You get kind of all these Pokemon, the nice synergy with the Sun it brings with that Drought ability, the Chlorophyll on the jump left, the Photosynthesis on Fluttermane and on Raging Bolt, and then increasing the fire damage of that already devastating Chi-Yu. A lot of really exciting offensive potential on this team. I think another really fun thing to note is the moveset on that Calyrex. Maybe not so great in this particular matchup, but with the Imprison to really kind of put the clamps on any mirrors. I think probably any opposing traders that have the Calyrex Ice Rider maybe contributing to the win column for Justin Tang a little bit so far.
Yeah, maybe we won't say that play out as much as it's useful in maybe some of the other matches there, but the Jump Bluff as well I think is a really nice addition that, you know, you may not think would be that effective coming into this format with how much Miraidon we see in the electric train, so you wouldn't really have the use of the sleep powder, but Justin leaning on it quite a bit because of the options that it's got with that chlorophyll ability, the ease of getting the sun up and then utilizing things like the Tailwind for the speed control. That Encore as well can be so punishing, and then the Pollen Puff useful to keep that Groudon intact, you know, when you can side Pollen Puff the Groudon, because it has got that Assault Vest, so you are going to be able to kind of stay the field a little bit longer than maybe those clear amulet variants that you're kind of more commonly used to seeing.
Yeah, we've seen some big Encore plays already so far today, and I think they could be really critical in this matchup. I mean, we have to see a lot of pivoting with this sort of team, and while, you know, the switching moves are not going to be punished by Jump Left, everything.
Này lo chắc quá, quên.
As much as it's useful and maybe
vẫn coi team hai bên. Victor, Medina, Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, Incineroar, Smeargle, Raging Bolt, Rillaboom. Một team. Team này sao giống team lão Nhật hồi nãy vậy?
Terastallization choices there for Victor, but he is one of those players I think I'm more familiar watching Victor quite frequently, a lot of times well consistent into Justin's team.
Justin Tăng chơi một cặp Restrict khá là thú vị với Calyrex, Araser, Groudon. Chiyu, Flutterman, Raging Bot và Zumblup. Hiện tại Groudon cũng khá là meta rồi và Zumblup là một Pokemon cũng khá thú vị. Nó hoạt động tốt với team xanh mà con Groudon thay vì tăng không dùng Groudon mà tăng lại dùng Groudon. Chốc lòi ra xong rồi khóc lóc.
Put the clamps on any mirrors. I think probably any opposing traders that have the Calyrex Ice Rider maybe contributing to the win column for Justin Tang a little bit so far.
Yeah, maybe we won't say that play out as much as it's useful in maybe some of the other matches there. But the jump bluff as well, I think, is a really nice addition that, you know, you may not think would be that effective coming into this format with how much Miraidon we see in the electric train, so you wouldn't really have the use of the sleep powder, but just in leaning on it quite a bit because of the options that it's got with that chlorophyll ability, the ease of getting the sun up and then utilizing things like the tailwind for the speed control, that encore kind of
well, I think because they can a bit
to sit and test it. Just in lead off pretty freely to be able to take those spores, but we are going to get started. Let's see Justin lead off with
tăng lead cho mình là Raging Bot và Chiyu. Victor thì đưa cho mình ra là Calyrex và Incy. ABT của Chiyu làm giảm start special death của tất cả Pokemon trên sàn. Đang có ABT gọi là cực kỳ nguy hiểm. Nó cũng giống như con dao hai lưỡi vậy. Nếu mà team bên kia sử dụng special attack thì quả là một sự bất lợi lớn.
Calyrex to get going, and Incineroar always very threatening with its support moves.
Yeah, and that's the thing where the TU has the option to go for that terrestrialization. You burn it really early on, but you can avoid that fake out potentially coming into that slot from the Incineroar, and then go for those big powerful snarls. Maybe
Victor protect Calyrex.
Victor wanted to scout out what the
Chiyu sử dụng heat wave.
Will be that heat wave.
Cũng không gọi là không gây được bao nhiêu đam cả Nancy, và do Calyrex protect rồi Thunderbolt không đủ đam, nhưng mà Incineroar đã bị paralyze. Xem có bị paralyze hay không. Không paralyze và vẫn kịp sử dụng Patin Shot để rút về. Một pha tính toán gọi là hình như là min sát thương đúng không ta? Victor đưa mình ra là Smell vừa ra cũng kích hoạt được Moody đúng không? Này khá hay, giờ mới biết á. Tăng đã rút Chiyu mình vào và đưa ra tiểu gì đây? Zip Pup. Double protect. Smell sử dụng Spore lên. Khá là hay, một pha predict tốt đến từ Tăng.
Moody boost there with that special attack. It's not going to be too handy this time round. Yeah, 4 levels of increased special attack there. Unfortunately, Speaker of feeling special, but not able to show everyone how special that it is. Great switch there, avoiding the Spore, and now we're in sort of an interesting situation where you're theoretically threatening an Encore and 2 moves that maybe you don't want to get locked into, but Smeargle will have the option of taking a follow me in order to try to avoid getting the poor Calyrex locked into Encore and the Protect. Well, it is the Groudon that comes to the field, and with it, we'll bring that Drought ability, summoning the Sun and activating that Chlorophyll ability, and the Encore coming out. No follow me from the Smeargle, punishing that Calyrex. It will be locked into the Protect for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, keep on protect.
Perhaps trading a Spore for that? Maybe for that, yes. And probably a worthwhile one, because now you can maybe switch that Groudon out of the field.
Rồi, Groudon đã ngủ.
A little bit more effectively can come in and maybe utilize that Gem Bluff now to go for the Spore into the Smeargle. Yeah, kind of a tough match for restricted Pokemon here. Calyrex going to have to leave battle, but at least, you know, hasn't been too... Well, you really don't have to switch it out here, but instead, on Justin Tink's side of the field as well, you would see the sleeping Groudon. So, you know, the restricted Pokemon to sleep. There's two very offensively.
Vì một lý do nào đó, con Smeargle này lại quay trở lại vào meta và đúng cái thời điểm này khá là hay á.
Eat some sleep turns so that later in the match, Groudon can do something offensively. You don't want it just to be bait for Calyrex later on if you can avoid it.
Well, to not leave it a sitting duck on the field, it does leave, and in place of it,
Victor rút Calyrex về và đưa Incy ra, giảm một bậc attack cho Groudon, khá là mệt. Tiếp tục Smeargle, dùng Encore, spawn đúng không?
as it is going to be locked into spawn, not really effective, especially into a sleeping Pokemon like Groudon and the jump left. And the big important thing here is that Groudon does take a guaranteed sleep turn, so the next turn does have the chance to wake up. But the interesting thing with the Smeargle is it's got +4 in its speed now. That's 2 speed boosts it's had, so it is going to be maybe outspeeding that jump left now, potentially.
Yeah, sure to get the chance to attack. Right? This spore is going to fail because Groudon can't wake up yet. But now it's a threat you have to deal with, right? You don't want to risk having Groudon wake up and get slept again. So the sleep powder is going to go down and put this Smeargle to sleep. But we've already seen this Incineroar lock into
Spawn lại, ok, được hay.
Not at all, and with that cover clock, it hasn't got that security blanket.
Tăng chơi kiểu đi từ từ ấy. Mà đi rồi. Thôi, 8 giờ rồi, tua coi một đi. Đưa Zama ra, bên kia đưa Raging ra. Ngủ tiếp, body press. Thunderbolt.
And another of this Groudon now will wake up. We've had that 3. Oh, it's a critical hit. It's a huge knockout. You would have thought from there your body.
These are Pokemon.
If you can the Smeargle field, it can be the difference.
Zamazenta sử dụng Protect.
We are just seeing a protect from the Zamazenta here. Just wants to check out what this GU.
Smeargle tỉnh. Smeargle sử dụng Spore.
A all important Spore release. Got that.
Damage pretty up there too. I think providing to win too, where Justin wasn't really able to do anything like 2 levels at all of its stats.
The body as we get into the tried and tested.
Feel there, well, maybe I could have won.
With a big Astral Barrage from this Calyrex, is it going to be enough to get the Raging Ball?
No.
It is. That is a huge knockout onto the Raging Ball before it can even move, and the GU going to be stuck, flinched by that.
Coi thường sức mạnh của con cây đất Alliot này. Keyword ở đó đó.
Is there anything else on Alex's team?
Is all about, right?
The first time you get those boosted attack stats. Some games maybe you'll have the reverse where your speed drops a few times and you rolls that Calyrex. It's a real
protect like lock damage. Perhaps make that quite but
mất Raging Ball sớm quá. Với lại team chắc Smeargle chắc có mỗi Mineron counter được rồi. Trận này của Wei Chi và Alex Underhill.
I think that's a different game where you get food buffs. Right? I got
worry about this Amazon.
I did it. They redeemed.
You've almost got the opportunity to go for the Glacial Lance here and a fake out into the Zamazenta.
Yeah.
It can't protect either.
Yeah, now the electric drain's gone, you haven't got the additional damage, so you're pretty safe to do it. You might
getting up
the Pokemon out of leech
for that fire back.
America facing off in an elimination
Goofy Flick. Mao Harada đang đứng nhì. Steam nào Goofy Click nè. Victoria, Luca 61 rồi, 52. Trận này content. Content về.
To our verses and get ready for this match.
Content. Cái tim đéo gì vậy? Đâu?
A match so good, we just have to make you wait a little bit for it, but we want to make sure everything is right. And again, now we get the real look at the teams, and yeah, that's a Wolf Glick team, that's a Marcus Dion team.
Yeah, the tease is over. I think this should be a lot of fun. The first thing that catches my eye here is that Annihilate by Marcus' side of the field. You can probably guess what moves, if you're familiar with the video game championships, as Annihilate tends to know. I think if there's one really defining characteristic of that Pokemon, it's very good at training itself one-for-one the Pokemon on the other side of the team. I think if you're playing a matchup between more offensively based teams, that's a little less devastating.
Team của Waffy gồm có Lunala, Coraidon và Pokemon anh ta yêu nhất Incineroar, Glutamine, Among Us và mấy cái team nó đúng hèn luôn á.
Yeah, that's definitely a Pokemon with a big risk and potentially big reward, right? Because, of course, you get that call right. You can just get rid of a big threat on the opposing end so quickly, but all of a sudden a swap in a Pokemon that, well, you can bear to be without, that's fine. But looking at
Ngoài Common Quad, Terraferry gồm có White Gạt, Moongus Beam, Chicken, Moonblast, Coraidon, Lyoff, Protect, Flame Check, Pro Combat, Flip. Set cơ bản không có set gì dị như mấy thanh niên trước nữa. Incineroar, Terragot, Fake Cao, Fake Shot, Flip, Will Whip cũng khá là chiến. Safety Google, Flutterman, Focus Sat, Moonblast, I Will Protect, Shadowball, Among Us, Terra Water.
But this Pokemon has a different move with the Will-O-Wisp instead of, I believe, the Protect.
With that
Anh phải đứng lên khởi nghĩa đi chứ mẹ. Tại sao anh lại theo bọn chúng?
I think this combination of Incineroar and the Calyrex mark the Life Orb, so threatening more damage. Something we've seen. Maybe you try fake out into the Koraidons, that's hard to avoid, where you can't fake out the Lunala, so it seems very likely that's going to happen. Wolf and switching the Ursaluna, hoping to end this turn with Trick Room active.
A terrestrialization for the very first turn of this match coming out, and
Marcus Terra lửa.
Of course, when you could get the like super fast from that Koraidon, you got to make sure that you drop that weakness, so we'll get to see that terrestrialization fire coming out. Knock off from the Incineroar into the Lunala, so much damage coming on out, bringing it down to a third of its health. Glacial Lance is going to be the follow-up. How much damage is it going to be? Lunala is gone, and look how much damage the Ursaluna has taken.
Oh, I don't think that was what Wolf was looking for at all. Gets red hard.
Sao anh lại có thể win được ván này? Để vào đây hai.
Ursaluna's going to down. Going down about a Will-O-Wisp.
Instantly to make it instantly gone.
The attack from Lunala, but close combat coming down. Going to pick up a knockout for Wolf.
Incineroar instantly. And
being Ursaluna going to move first. It's not so bad for Wolf after all. Learning a little bit of.
Of course, it's going to be an Ursaluna, and when you're eyeing up that spot.
Hết drop.
We're almost down.
Ủa nên chết rồi mà.
I think it's good. Incinerated the attack from Lunala. We'll see going down pretty quickly itself. Of course, you don't take damage from burn. The Wolf has lost his Trick Room setter, going to have a hard time getting the attacks off. Koraidon going to come out. Wolf with
Lunala is.
Ở đâu? Đúng á. Trong gấu là nhanh hơn.
Now.
Knockouts almost down.
Burn down impact, of course.
Swing with the
fourth Pokemon Koraidon, and none other than Amoonguss, the former, into the Moongus to soak up the hit and survive 26 HP.
Well, that's a really surprising move. The Ursaluna's gonna get to swing. You know, it took all that damage, but
ôi, bạn gà quá bạn ơi.
I guess 7 HP in a dream there for the.
Gà quá bạn ơi, đánh được tới đó rồi mà vẫn không hold được cái mindset của.
You can go fast and Lunala, you're on this.
You have to pay a little bit there in a single. Defense.
Oh, the.
To the
yeah, Amoonguss.
Opportunity. These Pokemon.
Seen, of course, but to happen.
Pokemon.
Damage in that
don't know. One of those
To see the close lock knock on today too here at Anaheim.
Pokemon wound up.
Just look at it. Back to that one decision.
Xem đây là vẻ mặt của người xích đẻ. Má xích nở đi rồi. Được. Đấy, hiểu sao. Thôi, nghỉ để lát 10 giờ, tầm 10 giờ đúng không? Để lát nữa coi nếu mà 10 giờ đánh thì 10 giờ lên tiếp. Bye bye mọi người.